Okay. Call the meeting to order at 6:07. Okay, please join me in the flag salute. Okay, Trustee Doggett, can you please read the land acknowledgement?
The Pacifica School District acknowledges that we gather on unceded ancestral homelands of the Ramaytush Ohlone people. As guests, we humbly extend our gratitude to the Ramaytush Ohlone elders and community. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland, and we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples. As the original stewards of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone understand the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of maintaining harmony with nature. Likewise, Pacifica School District commits to teaching our school community how to be responsible stewards of this land.
Okay, Barbara, will you take the roll? Here?
Here.
Here. The district records the audio portion of the meetings. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. In-person speakers wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items, please complete the request card with your name, address, and the item number and submit it to the board president and superintendent. You will be called to address the board. Virtual speakers wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name on the agenda item you'd like to speak in the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. You will be called to address the board and your microphone will be unmuted. Please note the public is welcome to provide comment to the board. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes unless extended or limited by the vote of the board. A maximum of 20 minutes unless extended by the board is allocated for each subject discussed. The Brown Act open meeting regulations under which the board must operate do not allow board members to comment on non-agenda items or information you might bring up that are not on the agenda. Additionally, no action can be taken. However, the board may give direction to staff following a comment. Okay, for approval of the agenda. Are there any questions on the agenda? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll second.
Okay, report on closed session topics. The board met in closed session to discuss the closed session item, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, but no action was taken. Okay, approval of the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If a member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any items should be removed from this section and placed on the regular order of business following the approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions?
Kelly's on the cone.
Oh. Okay. Our counsel's gonna, where is she?
Kelly Rim.
Mhm.
Council will come and set the ground rules.
But we didn't approve the consent, yes.
It's a public comment on that, so that
Mhm.
goes, she needs to go before.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add to what the board president just shared and announced about public comment, because obviously we have a lot of very interested people who want to be heard tonight, which is great. Public comment under the Brown Act and board policy is required and encouraged. And so we just want to remind the public and the board of some of the ground rules around that. As stated by the board president, during public comment under the Brown Act, the board members are limited in how they can respond. They cannot have a dialogue with the public. They may briefly respond to statements or questions or ask for clarification from staff. Request staff to report back at a subsequent meeting on an issue, or direct staff to place a matter on a future agenda. So there can't be an engagement during public comment with specific board members. Also, just be reminded that Generally speaking, again, each comment is limited to 3 minutes, but that and total for one particular item, 20 minutes of public comment, but that can be adjusted by the board president with consent of the board. We also want to remind everybody that to ensure equity and to make sure that as many people as possible can be heard, we would ask that when members of the public and members of the board and others are speaking, refrain from applauding, booing, shouting out. We know that there's a lot of emotion here, but want this meeting to be conducted with decorum and respect. And we want to be able to make sure, again, that as many voices are heard as possible. Finally, we have to remind everybody that we cannot permit actual disruption of the meetings, and that if there is somebody disrupting the meeting following a warning, they can be removed. So again, we would ask everybody to, provide your comments with respect, and be reminded that the board's not going to be able to engage specifically with you when you're providing those comments.
Okay, for the consent agenda, we've had a request to pull the minutes, remove the minutes from the consent agenda. So we will remove that one item to follow up with and afterwards. And then we can take a vote to approve the consent agenda without the minutes. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve.
okay, I'll second. Okay, Joan Weideman, you wanted to speak on this item?
My name is Joan Weideman. Oh, sorry. I'm a community member and a former board member. When on January 11th that I heard that the board was closing Ocean Shore School, I was shocked. I thought, wow, I really hadn't been paying attention. I was told that the schools were reorganized, I was told that reorganizing schools has been discussed since March 4th. So I went back and I read all the minutes from then to now. I reviewed all the relevant presentations. Let me read to you from the minutes for the December 12th meeting, item 14A, certification of first interim report. It is recommended, the presentation included discussing state COLA comparisons, revenue sources and expenditures, multi-year projections and related factors, economic outlook, restricted funds, and next steps. Nothing was mentioned about school reorganization. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the positive certification of the 24-25 first interim financial report for the period July 1 through October 31st and authorize its filing with the County Superintendent's Office. No discussion or questions, unanimously approved. All the previous minutes are very similar to this. When was the board notified that the budget committees were discussing school reorganizations, and how were they notified? Prior to January 11th, when was the school reorganization publicly discussed? As far as I can tell, this is the first regularly scheduled meeting where school closures is being discussed. The schools and the funds belong to the public. Elizabeth,
Stop. We are not disrupting this meeting.
thank you. The schools and the funds belong to the public. Elizabeth, Laverne, Kai, Linda, you are the community members that we thought would make the best decisions for our children. I think that it is appropriate that you hear from us before you make your decisions. I request that you allow 3 minutes for each person and that everyone who wants to speak is allowed.
Should we just go ahead and approve the minutes or it's stuff? Okay. All right. We need to go ahead and approve the minutes for the meeting of December 18th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 18th, 2024. I'll second.
Okay. Communications, LSCA.
Good evening. Is this on?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. I have been told at times my tone is too direct and absolute. I can't really disagree with that. After all, I am a middle school teacher and I am a union leader. It comes with the territory. But tonight it's not so easy. What more is there to say that has not been said after so many years? LSCA's message is consistently direct and absolute when speaking at board meetings and sending communication regarding union business and concerns. A common theme in our messaging over the years as LSCA is the desire for more conversation and communication with administrators and board members. If only our direct messages we have delivered were received and enacted, perhaps the community here tonight as a whole would have more understanding of the financial situation we are in and the implications from the action or inaction our district faces tonight. Since COVID, we've lost an entire school's worth of students, and we're on track to lose another within the next 5 to 7 years. Yet our district hasn't adjusted properly to reflect this decline. The funding that once helped bandage the wounds of our low-funded district is no longer there. We're at a crossroads. To maintain quality education for our students and sustain our salary and benefits for our employees, we either need a significant increase in enrollment and a substantial boost in funding, or we need to look for a solution. But the reality is enrollment and funding won't just appear. Our budget has hit a wall due to the ongoing fiscal challenges, so a solution must be found. Whatever decision is made tonight, we all know that the hard work is only just beginning. LSCA has members hurting and sad for various reasons. Some for the decades of work being put into a program and feeling disregarded, and others for the anger that has come towards them or their schools that they too have worked at for decades. The online chatter can be disheartening. Recently, I've seen people trying to shift the conversation to positivity in any shape, yet they can sometimes be met with resistance and challenges. We also have members optimistic that we will pull through this. We have teachers sharing great ideas about the possibilities that could be ahead for all the students in our district. As I saw on one online post this week, outrage is easy, solutions are hard. Whatever the outcome is tonight, I hope all parties can move beyond the outrage and together let the hard work of making this what's best for all our students. As we know, they're watching. Thank you.
Okay. CSCA?
We're the rookies. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent, Cabinet members, and guests. I'm Charlene Hilo. I'm Tiffany Hanna, and we're the co-presidents of CSCA. First and foremost, we want to take a moment to express our deepest gratitude to our members of the CSA Chapter 128. Your unwavering support and encouragement during these challenging times have been a source of immense reassurance. Receiving personal calls from many of you has been humbling, both humbling and deeply appreciated. Thank you for standing with us. We would also like to extend our sincere appreciation to our labor partners, LSCA. It's clear that your dedication and commitment to the well-being of your members and our community are unwavering, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration and learning from your insights. As we look ahead, we are all keenly aware that there is still much work to be done. The district's financial challenges remain significant, and we must take a comprehensive approach to examine the budget as a whole, identifying areas where we can make meaningful savings without compromising the quality of education and support we provide will require tough choices, careful deliberation, and a collective effort. This budget crisis is not something that will simply go away on its own. It demands our focus and united attention.
Tonight, you are faced with a difficult decision, one that will undoubtedly impact our employees, our school communities, and the future of our district. Please know that the CSCA Chapter 128 is committed to supporting whatever decision is made about this process. We will work tirelessly to ensure that every classified employee has a place and that no one is left behind. Together, we will navigate the challenges that are upon us and emerge stronger as a district and a community. Thank you for your time, your leadership, and your dedication to the students, staff, and families we serve. We would now like to recognize our chapter's above and beyond recipients for the month of January. Vicky Broadway, School Assistant and RSP Paraprofessional at Ortega, and Tyrone de Alva, fiscal technician at the district office. Vicki Broadway has been a longtime PSD employee since 1998. She has faithfully served the Ortega community as a school assistant and paraprofessional. Vicki Broadway has proven her dedication to our students for many years. Vicki is always willing to jump in and do what is asked by anyone to help out on the campus. She cares deeply for our students. Vicki loves working one-to-one with students, particularly teaching them to read. Vicki goes above and beyond to serve the students, staff, and families at Ortega and is a valued member of our district team. Tyrone DeAlva joined PSD as our account clerk in June of 2024 and was recently promoted to fiscal technician in August 2024. Tyrone works very hard to serve our district and is a key member of our district's business department. CSCA Chapter 128 is proud of all of our above and beyond recipients. Our classified employees are dedicated, hardworking people who care about our students, our schools, our district, and our community. CSCA will continue to shine a spotlight on Pacifica School District's wonderful classified employees. We believe that the hard work, the dedication, and the contribution of our valued classified employees should be celebrated and rewarded. Union proud.
Union strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Student board representatives.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe. I'm a student representative on the Superintendent Advisory Council. As you all know, today we are voting on whether Valimar will be a K-5 and about Sunset Ridge and Ocean Shores merge. As a Valimar student, I have a couple reasons why Valimar should stay a K-8. My first reason is the Valimar Middle School teachers. My teachers motivate me every day to work hard and achieve my goals. My teachers even motivated me to apply to be a student representative, which I'm very grateful for. My second reason is that the classrooms were recently renovated for the Valimar middle schoolers, while Cabrillo's middle school is currently in portables. And my last reason is Valimar's location. Valimar is in the middle of Pacifica and is accessible to everyone, and traffic will be limited if Valimar is a K-8. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julia, and I'm an 8th grader at Valimar School. I'd like to talk a bit about the relocation of the K-8s, but first I'd like to preface this by saying that I am a Valimar student and I cannot speak completely for Ocean Shore. I can't even imagine how devastating it would be for your entire school site to close down after building a strong and tight-knit community of fellow parents, teachers, and a unique school culture. As for the relocation of Valimar 6th through 8th grades moving to IBL, I'd first like to say that I'm not completely opposed to this happening. If we can pool the funds together and concentrate the programs at IBL, I think this could create a more academically enriching experience, as well as better elective and club programs for students to enjoy and ultimately be more fundamentally prepared for high school. I have a sister who is currently in 5th grade, who, if the move happens, will be transferred to IBL along with her classmates. For her, I think she'll be fine and be able to make this transition easily, and of course, this is probably true for others as well. However, some students may not be able to adjust well. For example, kids who have difficulty in large social settings, neurodivergent kids, kids who need extra support from a smaller school environment, and those who benefit from a possibly more inclusive and tighter student community. Hence, I think we should make the budget work to keep 2 K-8s, Valimar and Cabrillo. This way, students will have the option to apply for the middle school experience, as well as the option to transfer back to one if IBL doesn't work out for them. Additionally, it makes sense to preserve Valimar 6 through 8. Valimar is centrally located, has the highest test scores in the district, and we have gotten recent construction in the past year or two with the intention of expanding the middle school classrooms to fill them up to a fuller capacity. Our classrooms can hold just as many, if not more, students than Cabrillo's portables and are designed to fit the students' academic needs. I'd also like to say that last year, a summer STEM program for girls called Tech Trek came to our district to interview students from all the PSD middle schools. This interview process was heavily reliant on public speaking skills, past merits, and a deep curiosity and potential for future success at a STEM field. Out of all the girls interviewed, 3 were selected. 2 from Ballymore, including myself, and 1 from Ocean Shore. I believe this strongly reflects how Ballymore and Ocean Shore's cultures are very similar in that they both foster future leaders and speakers. And I think Ocean Shore's program could fit seamlessly into Ballymore if it comes to that. Ultimately, I wish the best for every student in our district, as well as hold respect for every school. I hope we can come to the best course of action for our community and our school district. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mateo Verlanik, and I am a student here at IBL and a student board representative. Next week, IBL are going on a field trip to the Exploratorium at the San Francisco Piers. I have met with IBL principal Miss Alderson to talk about new recess equipment and owl boxes to combat our field's gopher infestation. I think the owl boxes and new balls would be good, especially since Valleymar and Ocean Shore kids will be transferring here, and we will definitely need more stuff to, well, to help a bigger school since we will have a more populated school. Yeah, and thank you for having us, and please rethink your decision about closing down these schools, as this decision will hurt so many in this great community. Thank you.
Okay. People wishing to address the board on a non-agenda item? I think everyone's here for the agenda. Okay. So we'll go on to correspondence. Okay. We pass correspondence. Okay. Okay, board superintendent communications.
Hi, my name is Laverne Villalobos. It's been quite busy. I attended the special meeting on January 11th. I attended the Ortega PTO meeting, the Valleymar PTO meeting, the PEF PTO CPAC meeting, the parcel tax meeting, Ocean Shore PTO meeting. I met with the superintendent and I met with LSCA and CSCA.
All right, the last couple of weeks I've toured IBL, and also, Ortega. I also went over to Ocean Shore, went on a tour on Tuesday, thank you. And also attended the budget, the special meeting on Saturday, the 11th. Okay, I made a mistake. I have a communication. And so, let me just do, I did attend the budget collaborative meeting, and I also have met with the superintendent, but I did have a statement that I wanted to give tonight. I prepared it because I didn't want to forget something. Can you hear me? Let me take them. All right, just for this. Right. During my 5 years here as a trustee, one of the most pressing challenges we faced has been managing the district's budget. I vividly recall a pre-pandemic meeting at Sunset Ridge School where parents and teachers packed the room similar to tonight to voice their frustration about teacher pay. At that time, as a new trustee, I chose not to vote in favor of self-certifying our budget as qualified. Even then, it was clear to me that our district was heading towards financial trouble and tough decisions would inevitably need to be made. When the pandemic struck, we received one-time emergency funds from the state of California and the federal government. While these funds were critical in addressing immediate needs, they were never a long-term solution. Once those funds dried up, our budget crisis reemerged, leaving us to confront the deficit head-on. Around that time, our previous superintendent retired, leaving us in a precarious position. As a board, we embarked on a search for a new superintendent who could navigate the immense financial challenges ahead. We found that leader, someone deeply experienced and ready to tackle issues that had long been ignored. Our new superintendent, Dr. Williams, quickly uncovered problems that had been swept under the rug by previous leadership. Despite inheriting these challenges, she worked tirelessly to secure more funding for the district, including helping us pass both a bond and a parcel tax, as well as securing several grants. She also established a budget collaborative as directed by the board, composed of community members, parents, teachers, and administrators from every school to analyze our financial situation and propose actionable solutions. The budget collaborative had the task of reporting back to their respective sites. Additionally, the collaborative's recommendations, including tough but necessary budget cuts, were adopted by the board last year. At that time, it was made clear that while small cuts were implemented initially, deeper cuts would be required in the following year due to declining enrollment and reduced funding. Even the union representatives supported the budget collaborative's recommendations. And tonight I want to read to you an email from the LSCA president that I received on January 9th. Dear Trustee Doggett, for the past 2 days, LSCA and CSCA leaders have been working collaboratively with Superintendent Williams, cabinet, site administrators for the work-study session on Saturday. We have appreciated this dialogue and partnership and look forward to being part of the unified presentation on Saturday morning. During this time, we have come to the conclusion that time is of the essence. We cannot wait any longer to make fundamental changes to support our students that are impacted by the district's budget. Given all available ideas, you will hear the best option for our district moving forward that was created in partnership. The recommendation you will receive on Saturday meets the goals of enhancing student programs, providing future compensation to labor partners, and eliminating deficit spending by the district. These were the goals outlined by the Deputy Superintendent of Finance for San Mateo County. Our collaborative group has used his recommendations as our framework as we look at the path forward for a reconfiguration that supports stability and growth. We know that these decisions will have an incredible impact now and in the future, but we do believe it is what is best for our Pacifica School District community. Now, despite numerous opportunities for community engagement and budget presentations, attendance at these sessions have been consistently sparse. Many who are now vocal did not take the time to understand the district's financial realities over the years. This lack of participation has contributed to the recent spread of misinformation and misplaced outrage. Over the past week and a half, I have been utterly disgusted by the behavior displayed by some members of our community. Instead of approaching the challenges we face with collaboration and understanding, many have chosen to prioritize their own interest, blatantly disregarding the needs of all of our children in the district. Worse, some have resorted to spreading outright lies and engaging in divisive and angry campaigns and stooping to the use of racial stereotypes to attack our superintendent. Let me be clear. This behavior is vile and unacceptable. The baseless accusations claiming our superintendent is stealing public funds are nothing more than harmful, unfounded slander. I have read appalling social media posts and emails, and I witnessed the Ocean Shore meeting last week where a parent disgustingly mocked our superintendent using racial stereotypes. What's even more disheartening is that this came from an Asian woman who should understand better than most the harm and danger of perpetuating racial stereotypes. To see such disgraceful behavior directed at someone doing their best to lead our district through difficult times is beyond disappointing. It's shameful.
These actions have put our superintendent in an unsafe and hostile environment, all because certain individuals have chosen to spread misinformation and foster division and rather than engage in meaningful dialogue. This community, which should be united for the sake of our children, has instead shown its worst side. The example you are setting for our kids of selfishness, anger, and outright disrespect is appalling. I am angry, and I have every single right to be. This kind of behavior has no place in our community, and I will not stand silently by while lies and hateful rhetoric are used to tear us apart. It is time for us to be better, not just for ourselves, but for the children who are watching and learning from our actions. As leaders, it is our responsibility to make decisions that serve the greater good for all students. While these circumstances are undoubtedly challenging, this should be a time for unity, respect, and constructive dialogue, not division and hostility. This moment was an opportunity for Ocean Shore and Sunset Ridge School, as well as 6th through 8th grades from Ocean Shore and Valimar and IBL to come together, collaborate, and find ways to improve our school for the benefit of all. Instead, what has unfolded was a deliberate and damaging campaign to misrepresent the district's intentions and smear the superintendent with false claims about closing Ocean Shore School and eliminating its unique programs. Let me be clear, a school is not defined by the building it occupies. A school is its people, the students, faculty, parents, and community members who bring it to life. The physical space is secondary. Even if a disaster forced a building to close, the school itself would persist as long as the people and their shared mission remain. This is the very principle the Budget Collaborative worked to uphold with its plan, a plan intended to ensure the sustainability and success of all schools in our district. Instead of recognizing this effort, many of you chose to sow fear and confusion among the children of Ocean Shore, telling them their school was closing. This not only spread unnecessary panic, but also robbed your children of an important lesson: how to come together, collaborate, and work for the collective good. This divisive behavior was a missed opportunity to show your children that challenges can be addressed constructively and with compassion. It is time to rise above the false narratives and fear-mongering. Our community's strength lies in its ability to come together, not tear each other apart. Let us refocus on what truly matters: supporting every child in the Pacifica School District and ensuring their success.
We're going to go on to action item 10A. Recommendation to address structural budget deficit. Resolution 2025-01-22-A. Approval to relocate and reconfigure schools. And since we have so many of you that have turned in cards, there are quite a few of you that want to address the board. So in order to allow a greater number of people to speak, I recommend that the board limit the time allowance to each speaker to 2 minutes. And this requires a motion.
I'll make a motion to the 2 minutes for speaking.
I'll second.
Okay. What we will do is by our board rules, we have 20 minutes for speakers. And then at that point, we can see about extending that time. We'll take a vote after 20 minutes. First speaker would be JD Fagan. We'll have a timer up there with the 2 minutes.
Okay, go.
My name is Lee Rosenberg, and I'm an attorney with the law offices of Young, Minnie, and Core. My firm has been retained to represent the interests of Ocean Shore parents, and we've been authorized to pursue all options to protect students and preserve the status quo for the benefit of their students. Our sincere hope is that we can work together on a collaborative, open process that brings the community together and avoids division and unnecessary expense and distraction. Yesterday morning, I issued a comprehensive letter to the board addressing serious concerns regarding the proposal. These issues expose the district to legal liability, enrollment loss, and fiscal harm. It is clear that there are solutions that the district is not considering. It would constitute an abuse of discretion for the board to adopt the proposal. If implemented, the proposal would create unlawful segregation within the district. Just last month in December, administration made a positive certification of the district's finances for the next 3 years. This confirms that there is time to accommodate an open process, and there is no justification for a rushed decision today. To be clear, I know that the board is relying on the guidance of administration, but I want the board to know, as an attorney who engages with hundreds of school districts, the district's process was not appropriate. It may feel okay to those on the inside, but the proposal suffers from groupthink bias, participation bias, and confirmation bias. We ask our students to be critical thinkers, consider divergent opinions, and to be fair to one another. This process is not in line with those values. The district is planning to dramatically reorganize the structure of the schools and the school programs for over 1,000 students district-wide. Yet the district has provided far less transparency and opportunity for review than simpler and more routine actions like those in the LCAP. The district announced its proposal on January 10th after a secretive closed-door subcommittee process, and now, 12 days later, the district board is preparing to vote. If the board genuinely wants to do the right thing and bring everyone together, it must truly allow for the proposal to be pressure tested by all of the parents and the community in the light of day. This has not happened here.
I'm going to turn it to Dr. Williams to clarify.
Good evening. Can we have Dusty Navad, can you come up and explain the difference between a positive certification, or how you can have a positive certification and still have financial challenges? Thank you.
Good evening. I can't hear if it's on. Oh, there we go. Okay. So at 2 particular points in time, the state requires that a school district or charter school present a updated financial report. That's considered the interim report. That cycle is December and March. At that point in time, a school district or charter school needs to decide whether or not they have a positive certification, a qualified certification, or a negative certification. A positive certification says that they will meet their financial obligations for the current school year, the next school year, and the following school year. So a 3-year time period. It is both the budget and cash flow. A qualified certification at the time that an interim report is presented, either first or second interim, is when a school district decides that they may not meet those financial obligations. They are not sure that they can meet their current year, the following year, and the following year. A negative certification is a certification that says we're pretty sure we're not going to be able to make those. At that particular point in time, after the board makes their decision and it is presented to the county office then confirms or may change a certification based on a number of factors. At the first interim report, the district did certify positive. And even though we have a positive certification, meaning that we're sure at that point in time, back in December, that we can meet our financial obligations this year, 25, 26, and 26, 27, you can also have a deficit. A deficit means that you are spending from a balance that rolls over from a prior year. There's 2 kinds of deficits. One is spending down a beginning balance of restricted programs. There's also a structural deficit. The school district at this point in time has both of those. A $2.4 million structural deficit and an $800,000, almost $900,000 deficit in restricted programs. And so while you can have a structural deficit or a deficit spending, you can still certify positive based on the criteria that you use for 25, 26, and 26, 27.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. That was a clarification. That was not a public comment. That's why it went over. Okay. The next speaker will be Michelle Zaromsky.
Hi, I'm a kindergarten teacher and an alumni parent of Ocean Shore School, and I was one of 2 Ocean Shore community members invited to the budget meeting subcommittee on January 8th and 9th. This was not a collaboration. The meeting began with the presentation of 4 scenarios, all of which include closing Ocean Shore School. I'll continue to use that word because if you rip apart our K-8 program, you are essentially closing our school. As a staff member, I was devastated. It was immediately clear that the cabinet had drafted these proposals and set their eyes on closing Ocean Shore, shuttering the program that has been in existence for over 50 years. These proposals were not developed by the Budget Collaborative during their meetings in the previous months. Reconfiguration was discussed as a possibility, but those members were told that any type of reconfiguration would mean a process of 2 years, community input, and a task force to look at all possible outcomes and review studies. There's also a list of scenarios currently being circulated that was not created by either of those 2 committees. Some of these scenarios were discussed by the budget subcommittee and dismissed. I sought to come up with any plan that would keep our K-8 school together. Each idea was met with a no, we can't do that, with very little detail into why none of those plans were feasible or indication that they even thought of more options. I implore you to look for options that are equitable for all students in our town and appropriately engage the community and utilize us to come together to a solution that works for the staff, parents, and community at large.
Shivani Gangway.
Hi, I'm a CFO with 25 years of experience and the parent of a 2nd grader at Ocean Shore. Over the past 10 days, alongside other finance professionals, I've analyzed the district's financial reports, only to find them unclear and inaccurate. We requested additional details, but this district has not yet provided them. Among the issues, we identified a $200,000 calculation error, overstating the deficit for the next 2 years, skewing the reserve percentage, the key metric used to justify rushing this vote. Additionally, between the December 22nd first interim budget report, which certified all 3 years as positive, and the preliminary second interim budget report posted on January 19th, a mere month later, expected expenses for the next 2 years dramatically increased by $1.2 million each year. No explanation has been provided to verify the legitimacy of these changes. The district scenario projections only account for cost savings from reducing teachers and staff, ignoring the additional costs of implementing the proposal. How can Ocean Shore be relocated to 2 schools, along with Valamar's 6th to 8th graders, without incurring any extra expenses? That is completely unrealistic. In addition, did you know that losing as few as 10% of enrolled Ocean Shore students, if the proposed changes are rammed through today, would lead to a $1.7 million revenue loss over the next 3 years? Have you considered this decrease in projected revenue? It doesn't appear to be accounted for in the district's projections. How can we trust these numbers without proper scrutiny and transparency? How do we know the proposal will actually fix the structural deficit? I urge the board to vote no until the district provides clear, accurate, and verifiable financial information. Thank you.
Bridget Hart, and then after that, we'll take in one of the online speakers.
I'm here today as a parent. I'm hearing a lot of different things and it's confusing. We don't need to cut $3 million. The survey isn't reliable. Dr. Williams is a criminal. The community wasn't involved in the conversation. I'm seeing this in the news and this stuff isn't true. Something I do believe we can learn from the news is that there is more inequity than I think some of us have been aware of. Thank you, Dr. Williams, for trying to be transparent in these budget collaborative conversations. I don't see other districts doing that. I haven't been around that long. My kids started kindergarten 4 years ago. I joined the PTO. 3 years ago, I became treasurer. My first big lesson was this: our kids don't get enough. The pressure on the PTOs is real. My goal used to be singular, which was to raise $60,000 for field trips and art and other stuff. It stopped being just about my kid just over a year ago when Tom Stafford asked me to help lead the campaign for Measure G. I learned another lesson. The success of our public schools is dependent on the public, the community. It's important work. Luckily, that measure passed. So over the summer, I made the decision to leave the job I held for 15 years so I could serve our schools full time. And just like that, it was time for another campaign. Luckily, I got to work with people during this campaign. Measure EE taught me that a lot of people don't understand why our district continues to need funds year after year, but it doesn't change the fact that our kids don't get enough. The solution, if I only cared about my child, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have extended myself beyond the PTO. I might be standing here today asking that you don't disrupt our life, but the reality is the problems are bigger than my child and bigger than one school. The solution must be bigger too. The solution brought to you by the people in the system I trust the most, our teachers.
Okay. Can we get an online virtual speaker? Oh. Diana Ruggia?
Yes. Hi. I'm an alumni parent of Ocean Shore School, and I'm actually going to read a public comment from my son, who's unable to attend by Zoom. Hi, I'm Giovanni Riyad, a senior at the University of Southern California. I grew up in Pacifica and attended Ocean Shore from 2nd grade to 8th grade, and my sister attended from kindergarten to 8th. I will graduate college in May, but I was devastated to hear that the board was holding a vote to end the Ocean Shore program. The program gave me and my sister a strong emotional foundation and diverse interests. The greater parent involvement showed my fellow students and me that our parents cared about how we did in school, and the frequent and varied field trips exposed me to real life experiences and made me a much more worldly child and citizen. Personally, I know Ocean Shore alumni who came from toxic family situations and unstable homes, who went on to develop into adults with the emotional tools to address hardships and their toxic social environments. It takes a village to raise well-adjusted children. And for me and many others at Ocean Shore is that village. Please reconsider the decision to end the this Ocean Shore program. It would be a great disservice to the families and the greater community in Pacifica. Thank you.
Okay. David Hashemi?
Good evening, board members. My name is David Hashemi, and I'm the parent of a first grader at Ocean Shore. As a workforce analytics leader, I routinely use data to guide decision-making. So I closely reviewed the King Consulting report on declining enrollment being used to justify the drastic action of closing a school. This report is fundamentally about enrollment, but the numbers don't support the action. Next year's projected decline is just 1.1%, with an average annual decrease of only 1.9% over 7 years. This is a gradual trend, not a crisis. King's only independent recommendation was to refresh the study periodically, acknowledging that trends can shift. Why then are we rushing to close a school when the data doesn't demand it? Another key theme consistent across topics is changing numbers. King's numbers show Sunset Ridge and IBL don't have capacity to absorb Ocean Shore's K through 5th graders and Valamar's middle school. IBL alone would exceed capacity by 142. The new proposed board resolution cites significantly higher capacity numbers, but why is that? And how will the plan impact resources, shared spaces, and scheduling? I'm also concerned about equity. The schools most affected are in the district's most diverse and socioeconomically challenged regions. What steps have been taken to address potential adverse impact? Finally, the report doesn't account for the ripple effects of disrupting the system. Closing a thriving school like Ocean Shore risks prompting even a small exodus of families, worsening enrollment issues. Proactive steps that could stabilize enrollment, like expanding transitional kindergarten or improving marketing, are not included. With these questions unanswered, I urge the board to vote no on any proposal to close the Ocean Shore campus. This incredible community is ready to work with you to explore thoughtful solutions that serve all students across the district. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, I'm going to start calling 3 names at a time so people can line up and be on deck. So Drew Schemener, Rebecca Slater, and then Zana Cook.
Good evening. My name is Drew Schmenner, and I'm the proud girl dad of 2, including a 2nd grader at Ocean Shore and a kindergartner in the fall. I understand the financial realities that school districts across the state and Bay Area are facing due to declining enrollment, and I understand the tough decisions that school boards have had to make to address these realities. I don't understand, however, why the board hasn't engaged the community like other Bay Area districts have in making a decision that so greatly impacts all of our children here. Take, for example, Berryessa Union, a K-8 district in San Jose that voted in December to close 3 of its 10 elementary schools. The Berryessa board took 8 months to make its decision. In April, the district board officially formed a school consolidation advisory committee, which conducted 9 public meetings over the course of 6 months before making its recs to the board in November. Now, consider how the Pacifica School Board has tackled this issue. It did not form a publicly facing committee to engage the community, thereby ignoring the best practices of the state's Department of Education that are part of Attorney Kelly Rim's presentation at tonight's meeting. Instead, the district formalized its recs behind closed doors and only made them public 11 days ago. I'm aware the superintendent formed a budget collaborative committee that met 7 times last year from February to December that included 2 OSS parents. But this committee met privately and didn't discuss the resolution that is going to be voted on tonight. Another committee, the superintendent's budget subcommittee, discussed these options, and 2 OSS parents didn't participate. The only OSS reps were the principal, former principal, and 2 teachers. In closing, I strongly believe the board hasn't provided adequate time and space for public input on such a significant issue, and I asked the board, why didn't you? Specifically, why did you ignore the state's best practices and decide not to form a public committee to discuss and make recommendations on the future of Pacifica schools based on the state's best practices? Thank you.
My name is Rebecca Slater. I'm PTO president at Sunset Ridge, and now I'm also a staff member at Sunset Ridge. I do not envy the people that have had to make difficult recommendations, nor the people we have elected to make difficult decisions on our behalf. I trust in the Budget Collaborative Committee's commitment to our children and staff, that they have weighed all available options and that they have been transparent with us. These people are our friends. They are our colleagues. They are our children's educators, and they are our partners in community. I trust in them because I have seen time and again how they continue to show up and tirelessly advocate and work for our children. I deeply empathize with the Ocean Shore community. I support your activism, and I share in your worry and grief. As PTO president and now teacher at Sunset Ridge, I promise you all that I will be the first at the table to welcome, support, problem solve, and join hands to work together should our journey lead us together. All are welcome and all are in good hands at Sunset Ridge. And now with my remaining time, I want to celebrate what makes Sunset Ridge shine, because there is not nearly enough recognition of what assets we can bring to this community. First, as a veteran elementary school teacher with a master's in elementary ed and a national board certification in literacy, Sunset Ridge is and has been for the past 4 years my first choice for my children. Because I believe in a diverse community, and that is what best prepares our children for the world. At Sunset Ridge, we are most proud of our diversity and know it's our biggest strength. We are the most diverse school in the district. We celebrate all the experiences and traditions of our families, knowing that our collective assets make us empathetic, creative, and prepared for the complexities of the world.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Shauna Cook. I am an alumni of what was once Cabrillo Alternative School, becoming Sharp Park Alternative School, becoming Ocean Shore School, where I became the proud parent of a current 7th grader and hopeful parent of an incoming kindergartner who's not quite 2 years old. So we're away from there. One thing that I don't think that we're thinking or talking enough about is the mental health of our children. I am a psychotherapist, and I am confident enough in my parenting abilities that I know that my daughter will be okay. But I also know that this is going to traumatize her. They have been through enough already. This cohort of children has survived a global pandemic. Their lives have been upended, and your choice tonight will either upend their lives right now or give them an opportunity to engage with you. You have asked us, I felt chastised personally, that we have not been treating you with respect. I don't know what you thought was going to happen. None of us knew that you were going to close our school. You say it's not a closure, but if you take a K-8 program that's been around for over 50 years and you cut it into a K-5 and you send the rest of the kids somewhere else, what else are you going to call that? There is nothing else to call that. And what you're hearing is our amygdalas going, "Rah!" You're messing with our children. You're messing with their continuity and quality of life, and you're ripping apart a community and telling us that we should just be okay. Don't worry, you'll be fine at that other school. We don't think there's anything wrong with that other school. We just know that it's not.
At this point, we need to vote to extend another 20 minutes for public comment. Do I have a motion? Okay.
I'll motion to extend the time.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, and do we have another one online on virtual comment? No more virtual? Okay. That solves that. I will name off 3 again so they can line up. Monica Howell. Li Ling Pang. And Max Huang. Oh, okay, thank you. So then, Brennan Pang.
Board members, my name is Monica Oka Howell, and I'm the parent of a 1st grader at Ocean Shore School and a lifelong resident of San Mateo County. I come before you tonight to address substantial concerns regarding the proposed Ocean Shore School relocation to Sunset Ridge Elementary School, particularly with respect to equity. As others have explained, the proposal amounts to a closure in all but name. Assembly Bill 1912 and subsequent guidance from Attorney General Rob Bonta strongly emphasized the necessity of equity impact analyses prior to school closures. The district has yet to produce such analysis, despite clear evidence that certain demographic groups, particularly Asian American students, may be disproportionately affected by this closure. According to recent data from grade schools, the two schools that are proposed to be combined have the highest percentage of Asian students in the district, with Sunset Ridge Elementary School's Asian student population at 29% and Ocean Shore School's Asian student population at 24%. By contrast, Cabrillo School, which will be the only remaining K-8 school in the district after the district's proposed changes, only has a 9% Asian student population. Sunset Ridge Elementary School also has the highest percentage of students from low-income households at 37%. Within the subcommittee that moved to relocate Ocean Shore to Sunset Ridge, were these households adequately represented? The proposed merger of Sunset Ridge Elementary School with Ocean Shore School further divides the Pacifica School District by race and socioeconomic class. Prior to compiling a list of schools recommended for closure, the San Francisco Unified School District Advisory Committee conducted an equity audit over the course of 1 year, taking into account factors such as historical inequities and the socio-emotional development of children. Board members, before you cast your vote this evening, please ask yourselves whether it is just and equitable for the two most diverse elementary schools in the district to shoulder the
Good evening, members of the Pacifica Board. My name is Li-Ling Pang, and I'm an Ocean Shore parent and a math tutor. Please don't take a sledgehammer to K-8. Last year in Pacifica, 67% of kinder families chose a K-8 as their top choice. Pacifica values K-8 education, and it's for good reason. After decades of favoring traditional middle schools, many school districts are moving back to K-8. Recent studies from Harvard and Columbia show that students in traditional middle schools experience more academic decline, higher dropout rates, and emotional struggles compared to their peers in K-8 schools. Furthermore, those who start struggling find it harder to recover in a large middle school. Why? Because K-8 schools provide stability, and stability promotes better outcomes. It's a super boost for tweens during their turbulent years. K-8 schools are especially beneficial for neurodivergent students and those from disadvantaged backgrounds. Teachers can better support these students in a smaller environment, reducing costly interventions. K-8, good for the student and good for the budget. In Pacifica, we have strong K-8 schools and a strong middle school. We have equal access to both. And at the moment, 43% of our middle schoolers are in a K-8. But if you dismantle K-8 at Ocean Shore and Valamar, only 17% will be able to benefit from a K-8. Ocean Shore is a K-8.
Good evening and thanks for your time. I'm going to take a different track here. My name is Brennan Pang and I'm an urban planner and active transportation consultant. I will focus on a couple things. Firstly, the crowd favorite, traffic. Secondly, transportation equity. And thirdly, economic impact. The resolution claims that overall traffic will not increase. Rather than relying on generic numbers, the district should collect actual traffic count data from each school. Take a moment and visualize 259 cars. That is the number of cars at Sunset Ridge during a morning drop-off. Take a deep breath. Visualize 460 cars in a line. Is your blood pressure rising yet? Neighborhood residents can expect a 77% increase in localized traffic each weekday morning and a line of 460 cars lining up to drop off kids. Typically, adding more than 100 peak hour trips would trigger the need for a traffic impact analysis. Every morning could be like an In-N-Out burger, drive-through line, minus the burgers. Now let's talk transportation equity. Ocean Shore has a high walk and bike score. It's well served for those walking or biking to school. In contrast, Sunset Ridge has a low score because it's up a hill. Just try biking up that hill every day. Lastly, there are economic impacts to the community. Ocean Shore's location next to many local businesses is a significant benefit to the surrounding economy. Parents and students walking by is vital to these businesses. Shifting the school's location hits their bottom line. Give us a proper community participatory process and comprehensive analysis. Do the math and show us your work. This will produce the most thoughtful and informed decision for Pacifica. Let's do this for the future.
Do we still not have any? Okay. Still no virtual ones? So the next three would be Conan McDougall, Chris Romero, and Emily Stack.
Good evening. My name is Conan McDougall, and I'm a parent of 3 children at Ocean Shore School. Those of us asking for your no vote today are not ignoring fiscal realities or engaging in magical thinking. Tough choices must be made, but they need to be fully vetted by the board and the wider community, not rushed. Look at the passion and organization on display here today. Imagine channeling that towards solving these challenges together. We're a small district in terms of budget and staff. We need the community to be a force multiplier, bringing their energy and expertise to the table. Give us the time and tools to explore options and be your partners. So no, let's not kick the can down the road, but let's also heed another saying: measure twice, cut once. Thank you.
So to Dr. Williams and the board, first, thank you for all of your positive actions for the community in the past. We hope you contribute more positive actions tonight and going forward. So to Dr. Williams specifically, bringing out some recent victimhood seems, and doing so in an extended amount of time, seems more like a medium topic filibuster than actually addressing things important to this really large population that's here tonight. So going on to other things.
We need to stay on topic. We need to stay on topic with the item.
Yes, that is one of the topics here tonight, is the lack of focus by some members of the district on the actual things that need to happen. So I do agree with all the other speakers tonight that more time needs to be spent in planning things. One of those points of planning is the lip service paid to the integration of programs that will be destroyed when you dissect Valimar and Ocean Shore's programs and move them off. I don't think that planning has shown up on anywhere, and I regularly review the district website. A lot of things that you've done recently have been abbreviated or really not in the public face. One example is this meeting tonight on the PSD website events calendar. No remote meeting link was in that events calendar tonight so that other people outside this room could attend it. It might have been distributed in other ways, like on a closed portal up for Parent Square that the general public that is also affected by this meeting doesn't really have access to. I'd really like you to just give us more time, give you more time, give us more time.
Good evening.
My name is Emily Stack. I'm a 9-year Ocean Shore alum and a former teacher of Pacifica. Most people never speak to their 6th grade teacher after 6th grade. In the 16 years since I was in her class, I've spent several family holidays with mine. In fact, I'm still close with all of my Ocean Shore teachers. Their example is why I became a teacher myself. I'm still close with the friends I made in kindergarten at Ocean Shore. Their parents are still like second parents to me. That is a type of rich, deep community across generations that is increasingly rare nowadays. That kind of connection, cultivation of deep intergenerational ties are the bedrock of strong communities and stable societies. That will be lost if Ocean Shore is relocated or broken up. Other speakers have made these same points. I would like to ask a few questions that I can't quite find answers to. How much is the Pacifica School District paying Voller strategic advisors to answer questions that district leadership should be answering directly? How will the district address the loss of Title I eligibility and funds that will likely hit Sunset Ridge if they absorb Ocean Shore's population? Is that an equity issue that has been adequately studied? Are Sunset Ridge families aware that they could lose that critical funding for our most underserved students? If money is so tight, why has significant additional money been allocated to administrator salaries in this year's budget? What was the curriculum purchase this year that justified spending nearly 800% more than was budgeted? Why is Pacifica keeping money in reserve in excess of state requirements during a budget shortfall? Stability during short-term crises is exactly when one dips into savings. If the district knew that Ocean Shore was a target for closure, why did they begin capital repairs on the site? We're spending your money on a site we plan to shut down is an awfully hard sell to the American taxpayer.
Okay. Ann Mayer, Scott Kraus, and Angela Diaz.
Hi, my name is Ann Mayer, and I'm an alumni parent from Cabrillo. I probably am the oldest one in the room. I'm a professor at City College in San Jose State. I'm a nurse practitioner and attorney. I have 2 children who are alumni of this system. My son was affected by school closures here. Lindemar School closed, and he was sent to Ortega for his 5th grade year. It was a nightmare. It was emotionally traumatic. I was fortunate enough to be able to get him into Cabrillo, which was a lifesaver for him. He's now working on his master's in animation. These school closures are going to have tremendous emotional and psychological impact on already traumatized children. Psychology and pediatric journals are referring this now as a lost generation because of COVID. I see it every day in my classrooms at the college. And I can tell you that this is going to have a profoundly negative impact on these children. One of the things that you need to also consider is that as seniors, we voted for these bills last year. We voted for funding. There was no mention of school closures. And as a senior, I will tell you that if you close these schools, I will exercise my exemption from property taxes, and I will encourage all of my friends that are seniors to do so as well. Because I feel that this has been done extremely dishonestly.
Board members and administrators. My name is Scott Kraus. I'm the parent of a 7th grader at Ocean Shore School. I've been listening to these speakers tonight. I've heard a lot of emotion. I've heard a lot of really interesting comments and great ideas. Things I don't think that have really been explored adequately. In the beginning of the meeting, Board Member Doggett made some comments about how this issue of the financial problems in this district has been well known for a long time, and how only now has the public decided to come out in great numbers. I would say that obviously that's true. I think everyone knows that there's been a budget difficulties in the district. I think if the district felt that there was a lack of public participation, as board members and administrators, I think part of the responsibility is on you to make sure the public knows exactly the gravity of these discussions and make sure they're involved. And one gentleman talked about some of the things other districts, the extent they've gone to make sure the public was involved in decision-making involving school closures. I think that's the reason the California School Code has requirements related to school closures. It understands that this is a lot of gravity involved in these decisions, and they have long-term consequences on school districts, students, parents, families. So I just think that having a budget collaborative put together to discuss issues doesn't convey the true gravity of a decision that at the very end of that process is put out very quickly before anybody really had a chance to even know it was something that was under consideration. So I think a lot of the upsetness around here in this room tonight just has to do with how surprised everyone was to find this out. And if part of the reason is that the board didn't do enough to make sure the public knew the gravity of the discussions that were going on.
Good evening. My name is Angela Diaz. I'm a 20-year veteran teacher. I've been teaching at Valamar for 6 years. I teach middle school special education. I have 2 students that go there. My daughters are in 6th and 4th grade. Our Valamar staff would like a clear reason why Valamar was not chosen as the K-8 to remain open. I know the demographers showed that the southern end of town is growing more, but to me that shows clear racism and classism. A priority is being given to the more affluent, white, English-speaking population of Pacifica. We all know the northern end of town houses more apartments, renters, non-English speakers, and immigrants. Are they less deserving of a K-8 education than those who are homeowners? Is this the message we are sending to our students and our families? In fact, Valamar has the 2nd highest population of English language learners in the district, yet we maintain the highest test scores in the district, especially at the middle school level. Wherever you place the K-8 will grow in population. Your own demographer showed that Valamar will be the biggest school by 2031. Why would you not choose the most centrally located school in town? A single mom renting an apartment in Fairmont who works a 12-hour shift shouldn't be required to add 30 minutes to her commute so her children can attend the only K-8 Pacifica at the southern end of town. Nor should she have to put her children on a bus for an hour and worry about their safety. In addition to the racism and classism, there's a multitude of reasons why Valamar should be the K-8 that remains a K-8. We have the highest middle school test scores in the district and have for years. Who gets rid of their best program? We have consistently had the largest and sometimes only kindergarten wait list in Pacifica School District, proving we are the most desired K-8 for families and that our growth will continue. The district just spent millions in bond measure money expanding our middle school D and E wings. We now have enlarged, fully renovated, and science lab-ready classrooms to teach middle schoolers. Cabrillo is still teaching middle school in modular portable classrooms.
Okay, now we have an online comment. We need an online commenter. Okay, we'll have to end public comment if we can't. We'll have to end public comments if that continues. An online comment? They have the hand raised? Okay. Online?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I have kids that go to Cabrillo, I also went to Alternative, which was which is now known as Ocean Shore. It moved from Cabrillo to Shore Park when I was in grade school. It was stressful, but that's not why I decided to talk. I'm not opposed nor in favor of the school closing, and that's because I don't have all the information. I wasn't given a chance to participate in the meeting. I didn't have a seat at the table, and it sounds like no one else here did either. And some people who were sitting at the table are not members of our community. The first speaker went through your meeting notes, and there was not a mention of budget that the public could comment on. Someone also commented on your March 2024 meeting that stated there was a 2-year proposal with community involvement. I have not seen any of that. So I'm questioning why you're making a decision without following the meeting notes that you had decided on in March 2024.
Okay, thank you. Patricia Kaishad? Okay, I was gonna do three and then that'll be the end of that 20 minutes. Patricia Kaishard, Shannon Fern, and Jennifer Mitchell. And then we'll have to vote whether to continue or go on to the presentation.
My name is Patricia Kephart. I am an alumni parent. I had 2 students that went through during 2024 through 8, something like that. At any rate, they are successful young people and in their professions. I became a teacher because I needed a new job, and my teachers at Ocean Shore inspired me to be a teacher. I had a 14-year career in Daly City School in Bayshore School District. You are missing a big point about the community that Ocean Shore creates. I am friends with the friends that I volunteered with when my children were little. They are my support team. When I went through a divorce, they were there to help. And we're still having Thanksgivings together. This is a community. It's much bigger than the community that's even here today. And I urge you to take more time with making this very serious decision. The community was not aware until last week. Even though you think that you put it out there, we didn't know. We would have jumped in to help, and we'd like to. The threat that the other member made, the speaker made, that those of us of our age would come in and get our slip to take away our money that we voted to give you, we will do that if we don't get a sense that the board is taking this seriously and backs off and lets us all
Hi, my name is Jennifer Mitchell. I'm a kindergarten teacher turned special education teacher, which has been awesome, and a mother of 2 very proud Ocean Shore alumni. Here we are again. Angry community members, crowded school board meetings, yellow cards flying. Having been in this district for almost 30 years, this wasn't always the scene. In fact, CTA used to call our district Mayberry. Old people will understand that. Because the administration and our unions worked together, they participated in transparent conversations. They even enjoyed lunch together during bargaining sessions. And I'm telling you, we can return to that place of cooperation, collaboration, congeniality. We are a creative community with a history of problem solving. Give us a chance. We owe it to the kids in this district to try. So there's a whole bunch of smart people here who are approaching you with practical messages. Mine isn't practical. It comes right from my heart, a heart that's worked in this district and at Ocean Shore School for 28 years. I took and maintained a job, I got to talk faster, in the lowest paying district in the entire county because of this school and because of the community that this town provides for its students. Many of these students have been able to thrive at Ocean Shore because it is smaller and provides a K-8 experience where students can discover themselves as leaders and learners. Traditional schools are not for every child. I've witnessed firsthand and on numerous occasions how children who struggled in other school settings thrived at Ocean Shore. Among other things, this is a school for those kids who don't fit in other places. I've seen a middle schooler with an ankle monitor blossom working with the extensive needs class. I've watched a struggling middle school reader build his confidence by reading with younger students. Kids who have interests that are deemed weird by peers at other schools were celebrated for their uniqueness at Ocean Shore. And I'm nervous about some of my special ed.
Hi, I'm Shannon Fern.
Okay.
I'm the 8th grade ELA and social studies teacher at Valamar. And I have 2 children at the school and in the district as well. First of all, I'd like to actually give a shout out to Ocean Shore's students and community, especially in the special day class, which I helped sub in frequently before taking my job at Valamar. It gave me the confidence to return to teaching after teaching high school. And you know, keeping those kids in mind with all of this, of course, as well, is very important. Hello, everyone. Good evening. In dire moments like this, I think it's important to step back and ask, what do we want to be our legacy? We know we need to consolidate due to under enrollment in our schools. I too would love more time than tonight to make a big decision. With that, I'd like to reflect on our professed goal of enhancing student programs. In fact, let's revisit our district's mission statement, the Pacifica School District, the community it serves, providing an equitable, rigorous academic program. So then I ask, why are we not devoting our very best resources that we already possess to provide an equitable, rigorous education for our students? All our schools are excellent. I worked with members of Cabrillo today. I love all of our community and staff, okay? If we have to have only one K-8 school, we need to devote our best resources to that program in order to provide an equitable, rigorous education to all our students. And Valamar has a brand new, fully renovated, science-ready, and enlarged middle school wing that was built with our taxpayer money intended to serve middle school students at maximum capacity, which we understand we need to meet. This project was completed in 2023 and has been in use for 1.5 years. We know the K-8 model is very sought after. It will fill up. The demographers cited the greatest growth in the south part of town. It's 2 blocks up the highway. Brand new facilities for middle schoolers. Science-ready sinks, rubber.
Okay, at this point, we've reached the time, the allotted time for public comment, and we're going to need to go on to the presentation. So. Right. Do we extend only for the kids, the students? Okay, were the students that we're going to speak together as one unit? Okay, we'll have them as last one. Hmm. 2 minutes, yeah, yeah. Okay, so Miles Richardson, Corley Harris, Edison Cho. Cannot read that one. Jason Lim and Max Wong. Those will be the last ones before the presentation.
Okay, thanks. My name is Miles Richardson. I am Ocean Shore's 5th grade student council representative. I'm here with other Ocean Shore 5th graders to share what makes Ocean Shore special and why it's our choice for a middle school, a choice that the proposal will take away. I don't want to go to IBL. I want to stay with Ocean Shore and continue learning through doing. I want to continue my hands-on education through field trips and theme days. I don't want to just read a book. I don't want to just listen to a lecture. I want to experience these things. Ocean Shore allows me to do this. Please don't take away my voice and let me keep my choice. Keep Ocean Shore K through 8. My name is Corley Harris. My dad, Jonathan Harris, taught at Ocean Shore for 20 years. My brother went to Ocean Shore. Even before I started at Ocean Shore, I was a part of the Ocean Shore family of families. Now that I'm a 5th grader, I'm used to seeing my parents and other parents at school every day. We also meet with our kindergarten buddies every week. I'm used to having pod days when I get together with my pod, which has a couple kids from each grade. Ocean Shore has provided mentorship for me from our from our middle schoolers, and now I look forward to being a mentor to our younger students. Don't send me away from my pod. Don't break up our family.
My name is Edison Cho, and I do not want to go to IBL. Just last month, I was told I was guaranteed a spot at Ocean Shore. I had my choice between IBL and Ocean Shore for middle school. I made my choice. I chose to stay at Ocean Shore. I chose to stay at the same school as my sister. I chose to stay at Ocean Shore with my friends, many I have known since kindergarten. I chose to stay with Ocean Shore for the teachers, many who have known me since kindergarten, who I feel care about me and my learning. Don't rob me of my choice. Don't break up our K through 8 pod.
My name is Jason Lim. Ocean Shore is a close community. It's really easy to make friends at Ocean Shore. There aren't that many mean people. With buddies, pod days, and all the school events like the Winter Bazaar and the talent show, I've met and feel like I know around half the school. Before I met with my older grade buddies, now that I'm in 5th grade, I like meeting with my kinder buddies. It's even nice to see my little brother who's in kindergarten. I even know the parents because they're all around volunteering and teaching too. I think Ocean Shore's facility is nice. If all of Ocean Shore is sent to other schools, what are they going to do with the new playground? Why are they building that new wing so it could be abandoned and empty? This doesn't make sense to me. When I transferred from Sunset Ridge, I wasn't sure that I wanted to stay through 8th grade, but I decided I wanted to stay at Ocean Shore. Don't take away my choice, and don't separate Ocean Shore K to 8.
Hi, my name is Ryu. Even though my family lives by Rockaway Beach, my parents chose Ocean Shore. They chose Ocean Shore because it is a K through 8 school in the strong parent volunteer community. I'm happy they made that choice. I love Ocean Shore. One of my favorite things about Ocean Shore is Ocean 411 because I learn a lot about the ocean and animals. I have the hallways decorated by teachers and parent volunteers with the artwork we made. I like the weeks of activities with different themes each year: deep seas, polar seas, prehistoric seas. I can't wait to learn about the wetlands later this year. I'll be sad to miss out on other themes and leading Oceans 411 activities in middle school if you force me to go to IBL. Please don't separate Ocean Shore K to 8. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to start with the presentation for action item 10A. Yeah, just bring that.
I'm gonna put it back in. Respecting the students' artwork, I want to make. Okay. Good evening, Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Williams, members of the community. My name is Dwayne Davis. I am the interim assistant superintendent of business services and facilities. Tonight, I'm representing not only myself, but the executive cabinet members here, sitting to my left, as well as the leadership team and leadership of each of our school sites. What we have before us is an action item 10A, which is a recommendation to address structural budget deficits. Also, the resolution 2025-01-22, approval of a co-locate and reconfigure schools which includes a CEQA exemption. For over a decade, Pacifica School District has experienced financial challenges, most recently declining enrollment, elimination of one-time funds, and increased programmatic costs, which have expanded the budget deficit. In response to this fiscal challenge, the Budget Collaborative has been working since March of 2024, which is a 23-24 school year, to develop a plan to address the structural budget deficit. As a result, it has recommended that it was recommended that some form of school restructuring consolidation was needed to meet the three goals of addressing budget deficit, enhancing student programs, and addressing future compensation. A subcommittee convened in consideration of this goal to develop a set of budget solutions to address the budget deficit. In partnership with principals, labor partners, staff, and parents, the budget solutions were presented and discussed to the Board of Trustees at the January 11th Governance Work Study Session as options for possible school restructuring consolidation that meet the three goals. This presentation is a review of the Budget Collaborative and subcommittee work and recommendations. With that being said, I'd like to invite up one of our speakers this evening, Ms. Dusty Navant, who is a San Mateo County Office of Education partner, who will be presenting to you this evening.
Good evening, Superintendent Williams, Board President, members of the board, Executive Cabinet, and guests. I have my computer over here just in case I can't see what's up on the screen. All right, so I've been asked to present the various multi-year projections, and you'll see MYP in the presentation. That stands for multi-year projections. These different scenarios were created using the first interim report, looking at a potential non-action second interim, and then the multi-year projections that were created by the Budget Collaborative, the subcommittee with the labor partners, and also a additional budget subcommittee. So what I'm gonna present tonight is just a review of first interim, just so we know where we have our last basis. I'm going to have a summary of various multi-year or MYP scenarios. And then I'll go into 4 specific ones that were also presented at this board's budget study session on Saturday, January 11th. And then just end with a summary of those, all of those multi-year scenarios, looking again at our 3 goals: reducing the deficit or eliminating the deficit, looking at future staff compensation, and enhancing student programs. So to present just a review of first interim, when we look at overall general fund, the projection is for this year's budget that we have a deficit of $3.3 million. Looking forward to 25-26, incorporating 1.8 million in reductions, we're still looking at a deficit of almost $1 million. Moving forward into 26-27, we still have a deficit of over $100,000. These numbers incorporate COLAs from the state on the student attendance numbers without any additional future compensation. It also utilizes the entire parcel tax. When you go down to the second portion of the tables, we look at what those reserve numbers are. And so the board has the district has a minimum 3%, but the board has a 6% goal for a reserve level. We're projecting a 5.5% for this year, moving down to 5.6, and then under 5% at the first interim report for 26-27. Incorporated into all of the multi-year projections are both reductions, but also increases. So we need to realize that while we're looking at budget reductions or a plan for changes to the budget, we do have some automatic increases that happen each and every year. So one of those is the already negotiated automatic salary increase for employees that have been employed for an additional year. We use a 1.5% increase that runs right around $300,000. So that's an automatic plus. Whether revenues go up, whether student attendance goes up, that's an automatic increase to expenses. We also, because of the class size by the state for next year for TK classes, we'll need to anticipate hiring an additional aide. We did put into the budget some contract staffing reductions, but we do have some additional staff changes that are moving forward. Automatic changes to the retirement rate. So our classified employees' retirement rate has increased just about 1% every year. And so that raises the requirement to include those in the multi-year projection. Automatic, our insurances go up for property and liability. Our insurances cut utilities just like they do at home. And so we plan for those increases as well. Both of these years, next school year and the following year, already have in the first interim report anticipated or hopeful projected budget reductions. So overall staff change, even though we're looking at first interim a $2 million proposed cut, it really only is a 1.3 because of the automatic increases that happen each and every year. And again, for both of these scenarios, we're using the entire new parcel tax. So I was also asked to just present what would happen if we don't take any action. One, the San Mateo County Office of Education is requiring a budget plan for Pacifica School District. And so we need to come up with a plan how we will address the deficit. That is their largest concern. That $3.3 million needs to be addressed in a formal action. If no action is taken, these are the numbers that I've been able to put together. So for this year, we've had some additional changes to the budget. As you know, the budget is fluid. It changes as each day advances. Kids come, kids go. We have additional costs. And so we've had some additional costs that we know that we need to budget for. So that 3.3 right now is anticipated to be right around 3.5. If we're not able to come up with an approved plan, then those budget reductions, that 2.1 and the additional will look something like this. In all of these scenarios, I continue to project to use the parcel tax. And so without an approved budget plan, the projection would be, while we still maintain our 5% this year, we will be under our state required 3% in the next 2 years. If a plan is not approved, and this is what the second interim looks like, then the district would need to not have a positive certification at second interim. In fact, with these numbers, it would be projected to be a negative. The numbers get worse if we don't use the parcel tax. And that's just an unfortunate running the numbers, so to speak. And so this is what the projections look like, just taking out that $1.1 million use of the parcel tax. So the impact of a anticipated or projected second interim at this point in time, looking at where we were at first interim, where we might be at second interim without any action, both using the parcel tax and not using the parcel tax. It's just a summary in this slide that's been put together. And then at the board study session, we had 4 additional scenarios that were presented. And so what I wanted to do was give you a side-by-side of what that looked like. Because as we go through the slides, and we'll go through each of those scenarios again, so that you know what the considerations were and what the impact is for different parts of those. But looking at it side by side, the 4 different scenarios, you can see that they come in very different depending upon the year that the action potentially could happen or what that action might be. So scenario 1, you have a 2-year savings, and you'll notice, so it'll 1.15 at scenario 1 is 25-26. 26-27 would be an additional 1.5, but we jump to a 2-year savings. That's because when you have ongoing savings, you're able to double count it in 26-27. So the sooner that you make those budget adjustments, the better off to the financial health of a school district, because you're able to take them in a 2-year time period when you look at a 2-year overall. So these are the impacts. I apologize. These are the changes that were proposed in the various 4 scenarios, looking at different staffing categories, special education reductions, again, certificated, and then that 2 years overall FTE, and then what that impact is to the first interim report, which is the numbers that you saw in December. And so overall, we have different reserve levels. Again, as the board considers an interim report, we always have to look at the current year and 2 additional years. And then in June, we'll be bringing the 26-27 adopted budget and 2 additional years. So the 4 scenarios that were presented in January, the first was a budget collaborative. And so the process was various meetings by the budget collaborative. There were several considerations that were made: staffing efficiencies, reductions to special education, contract costs, enhancement of program, and then really just looking at the ability to use your facilities a little bit more efficiency and having that enhanced student education. So this is what the budget collaborative put together in their proposal, would be to have a decrease of staffing, reductions to special education, having the Ocean Shore 6 through 8s attend IBL, utilizing staff efficiencies there as well. And again, this scenario does continue to use the parcel tax. For the second year of this proposal, we have some additional special education contract efficiencies. In this proposal, we continue to use parcel tax. We look at a co-location of Ocean Shore and Sunset Ridge, and then having just additional enhancements to the 6 through 8 program for an additional site. These are the numbers that come with that budget collaborative multi-year scenario that was considered. An additional multi-year that was presented was a subcommittee with our labor partners. And so again, the process was to meet with them, go through with the various scenarios, look at what would work, what wouldn't work. In this particular multi-year presentation, it would be in both 25-26 to bring 2 6 through 8 schools to IBL, again, to utilize staff efficiencies, the site, as well as to enhance the student programs. That overall change would be about 6 teachers for a savings of about $600,000. And then this is what the numbers are when you run just that one particular scenario. Additionally, at the budget collaborative, there was a directive to have a budget subcommittee to look at additional scenarios. And so there are 2 that were presented. We numbered them 3A and 3B. So 3A is, again, looking at reduction of special education contract costs, staffing efficiencies, enhancing student educational programs, seeing how we can utilize our facilities in the most efficient way. So in this particular scenario, we would be looking at in 25-26, again, staffing efficiencies is to staff to the contract, special education. This scenario again does use the entire parcel tax, bringing our 6, 7, and 8s from 2 sites to IBL. And co-locate Ocean Shore and Sunset Ridge campuses onto a same facility. Staffing efficiencies, having 1 campus, physical site campus, but still 2 schools, can result in staff administrative salaries as well as teaching salaries. And then in this scenario, again, in 26-27, we look at, again, looking at reducing our special education contract costs. And then these are the numbers that happen with here. We do reduce the deficit and we hit that over 6%. And so we're able to potentially look at future compensation under this scenario. An additional scenario was just to look at that same considerations, just looking at a different timing of them. And so again, we're looking at special education, staffing efficiencies, enhancing student programs, but just on a different timeline. So under this one, we would still consider looking at 6 through 8, Ocean Shore to IBL, using the parcel tax, still reducing our special education contract costs, but looking at the co-location of Ocean Shore and Sunset Ridge in the 26-27 school year. It has the same savings potential, just 1 more year down the road. So you don't get that double second year cost savings as it looks at. And then in this proposal, we would be having an additional 6 through 8 go to IBL. So then this is what those numbers look like. So just comparing 3A and 3B, you can see that 3A doing it in 25-26 gets you that 10% at the end. Going 1 more year, you end up just over that 6% timeline. Looking again just at all of them on a side-by-side and using the criteria of staffing efficiencies, eliminating the deficit, enhancing student programs, and considering future compensation, and making sure that we're looking at what the potential is for certifications with the interim, and also what our reserve elements are. You can see that all of them, while they are positive, do give you those different reserve levels, except for where we're at second interim without some formal board budget plan putting in place, which the county office has told us we have a requirement to put together by second interim. And that's my presentation.
So I have a question because it says basically if we don't do something, we will have to certify as negative.
Correct.
What happens to Pacifica School District if we certify as negative?
So a negative certification at second interim will have 2 immediate effects. One is that the county office will require the board to come up with a budget plan, budget reduction plan. And second, you will be required to do a 3rd interim. That 3rd interim will be actuals through April 30th. You need to adopt that 3rd interim by the end of May. At the same time, while staff is putting all of that together, they're also developing the adopted budget. All of that being said, the county will still require you to come up with a budget plan. Without that plan, your adopted budget that will come in June will not meet the criteria of state, and then they will disapprove your budget, and then they will come in and require you to put together a plan. So the action will be required at some point. It's just at what point do you do the action that you know you will have to do?
And if this has happened before in other districts, has the county come in and closed schools in those districts, regardless of how the community feels about it?
Short answer is that the state comes in and then they take the action that needs to happen. At that point in time, the superintendent, the board cease to exist as a action board. And the state makes all the decisions for the district, regardless of the board, the superintendent, the recommendations of your leadership team, and what the community wants. They strictly look at financials at that point in time, which is not what we have presented. Good.
Oh, Dusty, I had some questions.
Sure, I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering what kind of financials, can you give us an example of what the state would do, like what they would look at? Since you've looked at our budget, I know it's a kind of a hypothetical, but if
You know, we
just-
do have a presentation, we do have the county deputy superintendent here who will be presenting.
Okay.
And I think that that Kevin Baltimore will be best in a position to answer that question. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
The next presentation, can you queue up the next presentation, please? And so I want to thank Ms. Navat for her expertise and her collaboration with Pacifica School District. As she has expressed, we are in a position where we need to make a decision. We need to have some type of action. What manifested out of that January 11th meeting with the subcommittee was a recommendation. Along with our recommendation, it also the subcommittee had in forefront of its mind, not only the three major goals, but also the philosophy and tenets behind who and what Pacifica School District is. And so I want to kind of preface that with what we're about to present to you now. But again, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm here as a representative of the executive cabinet members as well as the school leadership. With that being said, one of the things that the Budget Collaborative Subcommittee had to keep in front of it was the vision and mission of Pacifica School District. That being preparing students for an evolving world, and the mission statement, of course, Pacific School District community, it serves the children they cherish, together prepare each child to meet the challenges of the future, providing an equitable, rigorous academic program which nurtures curiosity and inspires joy, confidence, and achievement in learning. They also had to keep in the forefront of their mind the board policies and philosophy, goals and objectives and comprehensive plans. And that is in order to eradicate institutional bias of any kind, including implicit or unintentional biases and prejudice that affect student achievement, and to eliminate disparities in educational outcomes for students with historically underserved and underrepresented populations, the district shall proactively identify class and cultural biases as well as practices, policies, and institutional barriers that negatively influence student learning, perpetuate achievement gaps, impede equal access to opportunities for all students. And of course, as you've heard many occasions before, the three goals of the Budget Collaborative itself, which was to enhance student programs, to continue to consider future compensation, and to eliminate the structural deficit spending. You've heard from County Consultant Ms. Navid discussing the budget certification process. You've heard her mention the several stages. The three areas that we can qualify as is either positive, qualified, or negative. We all know as of this first interim, we have self-certified as a positive. But we also know that in the out months and the compounding interest, we could easily qualify as a, be certified as a qualified or a negative budget. In the past, we have been there, and I want to make certain that we're clear on that. In November of 2020, Pacifica School District's first interim actually was qualified. What saved us, and I'm saying that's because I am here now, was in fact just the one-time COVID funds. And those funds were put to good use. This is a historical chart representing the before, during, and after of COVID. And as mentioned several times prior, March 9th of 2024 was when the budget collaborative process began. Before COVID, the district again had a qualified budget, a deficit of over $600,000, and was unable to meet its 3% reserves and was actually headed towards county oversight. Some of those factors were as they are now and continue to be: declining enrollment, post-employment benefits, which continue and exponentially go up, unkept health benefits, which continue and exponentially go up, increased contributions to special education. After COVID, we all understand what happened during COVID. We received the funding, it saved us for that time. After COVID, now that the money has been expended, we are back to where we were, the possibility of a qualified budget status. As I mentioned to you before, there's no more COVID funds to shore up the budget's structural deficit spending. The positions that were funded with the COVID money continue to exist, which exacerbates the issue of overspending in the structural deficit. And we have pending litigation settlements. Information again, fiscal sense. This is regarding enrollment as well as our teacher-student ratio and our classified ratio. Before COVID, we had an enrollment of about 3,150 students. Today, we have currently 2,667 students, which is a net loss of about 483 students, which well represents over a school. The certificated student, enrollment was at 5%, recognizing the enrollment prior to COVID. Currently, it is 6%, an increase of 1%. That 1% is representative as we have lost students, but yet we have retained the staffing. Classified before COVID was 4%. Slight uptick between the classified and pre-COVID versus post-COVID of 4.4%. Again, as with certificated staff, we have retained the additional staffing that we were able to hold on to with the one-time funds from COVID, yet our student enrollment has decreased. And then from the district office staff enrollment, prior to COVID was 1.5%, and currently down a little to 1.3%. And the district staff has paid its fair share each of those years prior year.
I'm going to talk about actions taken. This goes back, things that we've done to save money in the district over many years. And I've been a teacher in this district for 17 years, and I can remember some of these: furlough days, lead cuts, relocation last year of the LMEC program to Sunset Ridge, the sale of Fairmont, which was a big income. Things cut in like coaches, instructional coaches, no curriculum purchase, counselor instability. That's particularly since COVID. That's been a major concern. We really value our counselors. And, you know, in the last year, we've had budget collaborative meetings and the budget collaborative subcommittee meeting. And this year, we've had a county advisor. We've had, of course, the parcel tax bond money, staff into enrollment, technology efficiencies, big lift grant and other grants as well. And of course, the special education advisory plan, which was implemented, that, you know, we've done some things this year to save, but it's speaking as an employee of the last 17 years, there's been a lot of things we've done to cut and save money.
So this slide shows the dates that we met with the budget collaborative. BP 3100 gives some guidelines to the superintendent designee or to the board that they can appoint a budget advisory committee composed of staff, board representatives, and or community members, and that the board may establish a budget subcommittee composed exclusively of board members. The committee is just giving guidance and recommendations. All recommendations of the committee are just advisory. This is the people that participated on the advisory committee starting last year. You can see that there was principals, teachers, classified staff, PTO, and parents from each school, also student advisories and representatives from CPAC. And then the subcommittee were these members, cabinet members, union partners, Cabrillo School, and then all the other schools were represented.
This slide represents the dates that each principal presented budget information to their staff and parent-teacher organizations. Most meetings were held in May, with the exception of 2 in April and 1 in early June. At these meetings, principals presented their estimated site budget, including their general fund allocation and information on site supplemental funds and their plan usage. In addition, principals presented on the district budget information. This information explained the annual budget cycle, budget certifications, difference between local control funding formula and community funding, revenues and expenditures based on the second interim, and county recommended budget priorities. Lastly, principals reviewed the work from the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, including recommendations from the March 4th, 2024 Budget Collaborative Meeting, the board actions that have been taken to date, the unrestricted multi-year projection recommendations to the board, factors that impact the multi-year, historical declining enrollment, and information and next steps. In this slide, you'll see pictures of 2 charts made at the Budget Collaborative Meeting on March 4th, 2024. The first chart shows ideas the committee recommended for budget reductions in year 1 of a 2-year plan, 24-25. In year 1, you will see listed initial staffing efficiencies, which included a reduction in custodial staff and 5.5 full-time equivalent teachers, reorganization of special education, utility savings, postage savings, technological efficiencies, software licenses, rental of facilities, administrative reductions, relocation of programs from Lindemar Educational Center, reduction of the position of lead mental health counselor. The second chart lists the ideas the Superintendent's Budget Committee recommended for year 2. This chart also shows that we were targeting to reduce the budget by $3.5 million over 2 years and save the counselors. The recommendations for 25-26 included the following: staffing efficiencies, including 5 full-time equivalent teachers, a parcel tax passage, reorganization of special education, Saturday school, reorganization of schools, application of grants, and increased student attendance. The Board of Trustees approved the resolution of intention to reduce and eliminate classified services for 24-25 on February 14th, 2024, and approve the resolution of intention to terminate certificated employees due to reduction of services on March 13, 2024. As a result of a 2-year plan to reduce the budget, we had the approval of AB 1200 disclosure, certifying the district could meet its financial obligation for the current fiscal year and 2 subsequent years. Unfortunately, not all budgetary reduction recommendations were able to be implemented, causing a larger deficit in 24-25 and subsequent years. The next slide will give a budget solution update. Under the check mark, you'll see budget reductions in 24-25 that have been completed. Under the check mark with the half circle are items we are currently working on, and items listed under the X are actions not yet taken. Even with the reductions in 24-25, passage of the parcel tax, grant awards, and increase of student attendance, we are still $3 million in the red. This school year, the Budget Collaborative has come together for a deep review of our financial crisis and made recommendations to address our budget priorities of eliminating the deficit, considering future employee compensation, and enhancing student programs.
Excuse me, Dr. Chavez, can you go back 2 slides, please?
Yes.
And can you go through that slide, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Under the check mark, you will see we have reduced full-time equivalent positions under certificated contracted employees, classified employees, certificated employees, and certificated management. Second, we have passed a parcel tax measure EE, helping with $1.1 million annually to support recruitment and retention of our employees. Next, we have been awarded a strong workforce grant for $1 million. We had reductions in utilities, postage, software, and curriculum equal to approximately $70,000. Lastly, we have increased our percentage of student attendance at our schools. We are currently working on the reorganization of special education, planning and implementation of Saturday school in order to increase our average daily attendance, application to the After-School Education and Safety Grant, which is a program in California that funds after-school education and enrichment programs for students in grades kinder through 9th grade. The program is designed to provide safe and constructive alternatives for students, as well as academic and literacy support. We are also in the process of additional reductions in software, curriculum, and technology. Actions not taken in 24-25 are the reorganization of schools, the reduction of the lead mental health counselor position, and renting of facilities.
Last year was the new year to develop a LCAP. We have an old one expiring, and this is for our plan for the next 3 years. Part of the actions listed in the LCAP were looking at reconfiguration of schools. There were multiple meetings held between January 17th and 19th. It engaged educational partners, parent council, DLAC members, SPAC members, labor partners, and families. We also had meetings in February. Sorry about that. We also had meetings in February, and again, individuals were invited to come and provide input. And again, you see that there's been parent council, DLAC, SPAC, labor partners, and families. We submitted our LCAP to San Mateo County Office of Education on May 1st. Had a public hearing on it on May 22nd, and then it was adopted on June 12th.
And as you heard from Ms. Navad on what can transpire from the county office, and so so what if we don't act? Assembly Bill 1200 authorizes the county superintendent to follow progression of investigations, findings, notifications, appellate review, interventions. I want to stress that. further findings and further appellant reviews and further interventions. It also authorizes the county superintendent to support the school district with information and provide collaborative assistance, as well as to appoint a fiscal expert or fiscal advisor. More importantly, well, all of it's important, but in addition to, but I'm stressing this, to stay and rescind authority over decisions made by the district's governing board. If the board's actions is inconsistent with the ability of the district to meet its financial obligations for the current or subsequent fiscal year. And so we have characteristics of the districts that do act and the characteristics of the districts that do not act. Successful districts and successful turnarounds are those districts that recognize that we have a problem, which we do. They don't mask the problem, which we're fully disclosing here. Taking advantage of financial expertise available, such as Ms. Navat herself, working collaboratively with oversight agencies, which is our County Office of Education, and are part of the solution. Those school districts that tend to struggle with this and end up with severe measures are those that typically deny the problem, resist the scrutiny from outsiders, don't seek external assistance, are combative, and overall just part of the problem instead of the solution.
Last year, the school board requested that we contract with a demographer for a demographic analysis to give us a more clear picture of the variables impacting Pacifica's enrollment. The report submitted by King Associates examined historical enrollments across a variety of demographic data points, trends in private schools within our school district boundaries, charter school elementary enrollment in our county, also our community demographics, including population trends and household characteristics, and residential development through the 2031-32 school year, which estimated an additional 134 students over that period of time. It also showed how birth to kinder and birth to TK ratios were impacted by COVID and how it will continue to impact our enrollment ongoing. There was also an analysis of student migration rates that have been down significantly over COVID, and though appear to have been stabilized, are lower than pre-pandemic levels. The two big takeaways from the demographic analysis are that birth rates are 50% less from 1991, and there are smaller incoming cohorts of students in TK and kindergarten to replace the larger promoting cohorts from 8th grade. While TK adds another grade to elementary school, it does not add an increase in overall cohort size, meaning that the cohort size coming into TK is not making up for the larger 8th grade promoting cohort. The King report developed projections for both a high, moderate, and low enrollment. They recommended using the moderate projections when making enrollment decisions. This slide lists all the resources that King used when gathering data and analyzing the different data points for us. The report, these are 5 of the most significant recommendations that came out of the King report. The budget collaborative, at the budget collaborative, King Associates did recommend that in 3 to 4 years, we contract for an update of the enrollment and population trends, that we use this report to manage our special education programs and staffing in light of our overall enrollment projections, and that we plan to optimize staffing based on moderate enrollment projections, and we integrate this report into our facility master plan. The district should also consider school and/or program consolidation using careful consideration of overall enrollment levels, classroom capacity, facility condition assessments, and financial implications, among other factors.
The framework used in assessing the scenarios aligned with the goals to enhance student programming, provide opportunities for future compensation, and eliminate deficit spending. The data and resources looked at were the demographer's report, the site capacity, and we evaluated whether each scenario eliminated the deficit. Here are the schools in our district: Cabrillo, Ocean Shore, Ortega, IBL, Sunset Ridge, and Valleymar all have traditional educational programs. The district's independent homeschool is the only alternative school of choice.
When the Budget Collaborative team met at the start of the school year, we reflected on last year's progress and gained additional insights into our declining enrollment and the ongoing budget deficits. It became clear that addressing the district's need this year would require a more comprehensive approach. Unfortunately, this meant discussing difficult options. The subcommittee then analyzed several scenarios, such as, but certainly not limited to, converting all K-8 and K-5 schools to K-6 and making IBL exclusively 7-8, sending all 6-8 students to IBL, moving Ocean Shores K-8 to Sunset Ridge, moving Cabrillo and Ocean Shores Middle School to IBL, relocating Valleymar TK-5 to Sunset Ridge and Valleymar 6-8 to IBL. Any of these combinations and permutations were not viable for a number of reasons, including capacities, but most importantly, they did not meet our three goals: eliminating the budget deficit, enhancing student programming, and planning for future compensation. Two-year transition plans were also deemed unviable as they prolonged the uncertainty and failed to meet the financial or educational objectives. Analyzing these scenarios highlighted the complexities involved in balancing student needs, community concerns, and budgetary constraints. Among the various scenarios considered, only one fully met all three primary goals. The Budget Collaborative Subcommittee recommends a one-year plan to address the district's structural budget deficit while prioritizing student programming and efficient resource use. This plan consolidates resources and maximizes efficiency by co-locating Ocean Shore K-5 students with Sunset Ridge and relocating Ocean Shore and one other 6-8 school to Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School.
The recommended one-year plan offers significant opportunities for the district, including multi-year budget savings, the potential for future staff compensation increases, the creation of a strong school culture by leveraging collaboration between co-located sites. It achieves all three district goals by 2025-26 school year, enabling the district to shift its focus toward enriching and expanding school programs. It minimizes disruption through a one-time move. This approach strengthens both the comprehensive middle school and the TK-8 program in resources and student options. The plan also enhances three robust TK-5 programs, ensuring improved resources and educational opportunities for students while providing long-term stability and growth for the district. Some additional opportunities include concentrating rather than stretching our resources, providing a chance to expand the project-based learning framework. The restructuring of special day programs stabilizes staffing for ed specialists and other special education roles. This is the only plan we found with the potential to improve salaries, helping to attract and retain highly qualified teachers and staff. Additionally, the plan addresses resource inequities across the district, fostering a more balanced distribution of support. Lastly, the relocation and co-location of PTOs creates expanded opportunities for resource sharing and enhanced parent and community collaboration, ultimately strengthening engagement and unity across school communities. This recommendation offers an opportunity to strengthen the district's financial health and educational offerings. The subcommittee recognized the challenges of such transitions, but believes this one-year solution is the most viable path to creating a sustainable, equitable, and thriving educational community.
Obvious, God, I'm so loud. Obviously, this plan comes with a lot of challenges. First, we have logistical challenges in implementing these changes for the 25-26 school year. We have complex, as we can see tonight, community relationships regarding impacts across the district. There are limited choices for Ocean Shore and the other 6th through 8th grade students that will be relocated. Concerns regarding families potentially leaving the district. Concerns regarding additional loss of teachers and classified staff. Loss of a longstanding community program and inability for ongoing management of specific programs related to the co-located schools culture. Concerns regarding community confidence in the school district funding process in light of passing parcel tax and the bond measures. God, don't applaud that. As awful or difficult or challenging as this scenario is, it was the only scenario that met all three goals. Enhancing instructional programming, eliminating instructional deficit, and providing potential future compensation. It was the only scenario that would allow us to have a positive certification. If we take no action, we will end up as qualified or negative. Yeah.
In the scenarios that have been presented, there are opportunities for us to provide additional programs that can enhance instruction across the district. While not an exhaustive list, this is a collection of some of the examples of programs that can be implemented, and in some cases with funding from grants, if the funds are split between fewer school sites. These programs that are grant funded, like the before and after school homework programming or the middle school science program, would have a richer benefit for students because that grant funding would be collected at fewer school sites. We have to consider future compensation. It was one of our three goals. This is an important consideration for our employees, many of whom choose to work in our school district because of their personal connections and dedication to this community. During the process of balancing the budget, one of the three goals that we were tasked with was to consider future compensation for staff. It's important for us to recognize and acknowledge the hard work of all of our employees, and it's our fiscal responsibility to ensure, it's important for us to make sure that we're fiscally responsible so that we can ensure that we offer compensation that allows us to attract and retain employees, qualified teachers and staff by offering competitive salaries, benefits, and incentives. Only one scenario allowed us to consider future compensation for our hardworking and dedicated employees.
And so you've heard these three goals continually throughout the evening. You've heard them from Ms. Navat during her presentation. You've heard them from myself, several other members of the subcommittee. Again, I'll reiterate, enhance student programs, consideration of future compensation, and eliminate deficit spending. You heard several different scenarios provided to you by Ms. Navat herself. You've also heard members of the subcommittee provide overviews of the scenarios that were considered during the January 11th board work session. And so at this point, we are at a summary of the recommendations.
Excuse me, can we have, Kevin?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. At this time, I'd like to invite up San Mateo County Office of Education's representative, Kevin Botima, who is a deputy superintendent of business services there. He's quite aware of Pacifica's position financially. He and his staff have worked tirelessly along with Ms. Nevada and myself. I can tell you he is intimately involved and has looked at it, not only his staff, but he himself has looked at the position that Pacifica is in. And I know this because we have been on several different Zooms ourselves together. And so with that being said, I'd like to invite up Mr. Botina.
Good evening, Board. I really am here to clarify the role of the County Office of Education and simply answer any questions that you might have. The County Office of Education serves as the intermediary agency between the state of California and local education agencies. Our role is one of not only support, but also oversight. And so in that role, it was pointed out earlier in Education Code 421276, that really is the education code that guides our oversight work. And so we are currently evaluating your second interim budget specifically. And we will ultimately issue a letter, whether we concur with your self-certification as positive or whether we believe a different certification is warranted. So if there's any questions the board has on our work, happy to answer.
My question is, what does it really look like when you have to certify qualified versus negative, like over the years?
Sure. So in that Education Code 42127, there's actually two steps. Typically, we want progressive intervention. You don't want to go from a positive to a negative or a cash shortage. You would like to have some progressive actions. And specifically, when you implement the first portion of that education code, there's up to 7 things that the state says we're required to do one of them. A number have already been mentioned. We can request a new projection, third interim report. We can assign a fiscal advisor. But we have to do one of those things. Typically, we do 2 or 3, actually. And the hope is that that starts to give the district some momentum, a plan to move forward and address whatever fiscal concerns are there. If, however, the district is not continuing to improve, or if the certification moves from a qualified to a negative, we move into the second section of that education code. And that's where it was mentioned earlier that the County Office of Education can put in place stay and rescind authority over the board. And it's important to note, we can't force the board to do anything. We don't have that authority. But if we got to a negative status or we were implementing that second portion of the education code, we could have stay and rescind authority. So you could not take an action that would have a negative adverse effect on the district's financials.
Thank you.
I have a question just sort of about if we get to the next step. Oh. I'm turning it on and off. Okay. My question to you, Dr. Williams, is if we got to the next step, clearly the community needs, we need to reframe a little if we get to that place. But I'm just wondering what kind of team or how could we transition from the place we're at now to potentially a different place as far as schools merging.
So the way for us to transition economically or fiscally from where we are to where we need to go. So for example, looking at our $3.5 million deficit has been stated, there would need to be a plan that we would need to put in place. So whatever action the board takes tonight will be considered as a plan. And what that plan is, it is a signal to the county office, and please feel free to affirm or not. It is a signal to the county office that we are aware of our deficit and our structural deficit, and we are taking action to remedy that structural deficit, to eliminate it. And so if in fact the board were to take an action, let's say this evening, and accept the recommendation of the committee. Then we would have a transition team come in to support, to write out a plan, to extend the plan with specific details in terms of how the schools will transition, how the co-location will roll out before July 1 of 2025.
And I just want to thank you. One other thing I just want to mention is I first of all want to compliment all of the principals. The amount of work you guys have put in over the last 2 years is outstanding. I think you guys have, it's probably one of the strongest teams we've had in a really long time. And part of this collaborative was bringing all of our educational leaders together. That included the unions, that included parents. It did include parents from Ocean Shore, and I'm sorry that those parents were reluctant to give the information to their community. Anyway, I very much want to listen to the educational leaders here in Pacifica. They're outstanding. And I thank you all for all the work you've done to come to these recommendations. So thank you.
It's me again. I have a question for you. How long have you been working with Pacifica School District?
I think over the last year, we've been involved kind of behind the scenes. We work and support all the 23 school districts within the county on a regular basis. But we do have districts at times that show fiscal distress, and then we start providing that progressive intervention.
That's another question that came up a couple times, financial distress. What does the county consider financial distress?
Sure, there's multiple analytics to that. It's already been kind of referenced here before. Fund balance may be something that we look at, but deficits, the idea of spending more than you are bringing in, is certainly a concern for us.
Can you also, I'm sorry if I may ask a question, but can you also explain why schools are not allowed to continue with a structural deficit without showing a plan of elimination, or that they are trying to remedy the structural deficit spending?
I'm not sure I understand.
Why is it not good to have structural deficit spending or deficit spending?
Well, at some point you run out of money.
Right.
So yeah, you can't continue to spend more than you bring in ultimately and pay all your bills. And I would add one additional piece related to a negative certification. It's been mentioned. Often a negative certification is more typically related to cash. So when you look at the definition of will not be able to meet our financial obligations, you're often talking about you will not have the cash to make payroll or pay your bills. So, you know, a negative certification is interesting because it's not just based on fund balance per se. It can be specifically whether or not you have enough cash in the treasury to make payroll, for instance.
So my other question is, why is having just a 3% reserve not recommended? I mean, that's what the state says we need to have, but is it recommended or not?
Yeah, the 3% is required, and often is depending on the size of the district. A larger district like LA Unified, it's 1%. So it depends on the size of the district. But one thing to keep in mind, typically one payroll for a specific month can be up to 7% of the expenditures for the district. And often a 3% doesn't even cover one payroll run. But it's important to note, school districts are not banks. You take in money and you provide services to kids. So I don't advocate reserves for reserve's sake, but they can be a benefit. Often they can give you a little more time to make decisions because you have those reserves which you can rely upon.
So my question is for the subcommittee. I don't know who wants to, it's actually a two-part question. It's a two-part question. I heard a lot of public comments tonight that this idea of reorganization of schools or reconfiguration of schools was never presented to the public. And then I saw in the presentation that you all presented this last year. And I just want to
just go back over those dates that this was presented in public at our meetings.
Oh, I have one more question. I went back the meeting before COVID and it was March 11th and we were in this exact same position and we had just qualified, not positive, but qualified. And then 4 days later, everything shut down. And so I wanted to go back and see what we had done. And at that time, we had cut almost $1 million. And that was mostly our vice principals and other staff. And so I just want to recognize that we've been here before. And now it's just come to the point where we need to do something. I mean, we saw the what happens if we do nothing. And that's kind of scary. I did receive an email from somebody who was in an LA district and Compton had been taken over. And the parents from Compton had wished that the board had done something prior to that, because after that, they had no control over what would happen. And so I just wanted to make it clear that I kind of feel like this is a continuation of that meeting.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, have you worked with any schools that have ended up being taken over by the state?
No,
You're correct.
however, I was, the district I came from, had gone negative and, I was at the County Office of Education, before I went there, and we had started the process because the way it works is actually the county superintendent needs to go to the legislature, and make the request. Because ultimately what happens is the state issues a bond on your behalf. Because ultimately it comes down to you don't have the cash to pay people per se. So the state issues the bond and then you have to pay that bond over time. So it actually gets more expensive if it goes down that road. And then it's been mentioned earlier, there's changes in governance and management as well. So it's it doesn't happen very often, especially since AB 1200 was put in place. In the places where it has, those districts have taken a long time to recover. Okay, great.
In regards to the question regarding meetings, after the 2024 budget collaborative meetings, every school presented in either April or May to their staff. The PTOs were also presented between April, May, and June at every school. And then there were LCAP meetings through January and February that requested parent input, family input, along with labor unions and councils, DLAC and SPAC.
At this time, I'd like to invite up to District Council Kelly Rim, who is with the Lozano and Smith LLP.
Could we first have all the presenters introduce themselves? Because they didn't introduce themselves when they came up, the
Okay.
ones that came.
I apologize. We'll just stand from there, I guess, instead of. Oh, you want everybody come? Oh, okay.
I'm Tony Corton. I'm principal at Ocean Shore School.
I'm Dr. Cundiff, principal at Sunset Ridge.
Rachel Romo, principal at Ortega.
Kathy Alderson, principal at Ingram B. Lacey Middle School.
Laura Vuskovic, principal at Valley Mar School.
Jean Bellinger, coordinator of student services and former principal of Ocean Shore School.
Tiffany Parrish, principal of Cabrillo.
Dr. Carla Chavez Torres, Director of Human Resources.
Martha Ladd, Interim Director of Special Education and Student Services.
Dr. Carissa Bowman, Executive Director of Educational Support Services.
And I am Dr. Dwayne Davis, as Interim Assistant Superintendent of Business Services and Facilities. At this time, I'd like to invite up Kelly Ream, who is our district counsel from Lozano and Smith LLP.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I'm here to discuss some of the legal considerations, procedural considerations around the decision that's before you tonight. So just a really quick roadmap of what I'm going to cover, community input requirements, the best practices. I know we've had some comments around that from the California Department of Education, Assembly Bill 1912, guidance from the Attorney General, and environmental considerations, all related to this item. So I just want to set the stage here by giving the caveat that you are not being asked to approve a closure this evening. But I also, respectfully, I don't know that the specific terminology that we're going to use is determinative. This California Department of Education takes the position that closures include consolidations, and reality is there's no legal definition of those terms. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what the closure requirements are. The other reality of this is that there really are not all that many legal requirements that expressly apply to the process. There is best practices, recommendations, and flexibility, and it's really up to each individual district to determine what makes the most sense given that guidance. So the first thing, like I said, we're going to talk about is community input or community involvement. That is one area where I would say there is a fairly express legal requirement. It's in Education Code 17387. And you'll see that that section applies expressly not only to school closure, but also to use of surplus space. And so those sections are very specific when it comes to sale or lease of property, and much less specific when it comes to a school closure or similar action. And I am going to just be using that term closure because that's in the statute without any implication being made that that's what's before you. So in any case, we are left with this requirement for some community involvement in the process. But the Ed Code doesn't say what that has to look like, right? So that's where you have some options and flexibility. And so first things first, I believe it's CDE recommending, or at least considering forming some sort of committee to advise on these decisions. And we have a couple of different options that they provide for that. The first is what we refer to as a 7-Eleven committee. We call it that because it's a specific statutory committee that has to be made up of between 7 and 11 members, coming from very specific categories of membership, different backgrounds and expertise. And some of them were represented on the committee that was formed here, like the teachers and school administration. But that type of committee is only expressly required when it comes to a decision whether to sell or lease district property. It's not required in this case. And so that is just one option that we have. Another option is a more flexible district advisory committee. This is more akin to what was done here. This is often, that sort of more flexible approach is often used with these types of decisions because it allows for more flexibility in the membership, expanded membership. So you're not limited to that 11 member limit, right? You can have as many or as few, but ideally more input, the better, right? And so there's just more flexibility when it comes to this type of committee versus 7-Eleven committee. 7-Eleven committee is also one that is appointed and formed by the board and therefore subject to the Brown Act. So that would not apply here. So I just want to pause there for a minute because as much as we're seeing these tough decisions all over the state, and sometimes litigation over it, we actually don't have a lot of express legal requirements to follow. So I talked about community involvement, and yes, that is in the statute. So we need to do that, and we are trying to do that. Beyond that, we have recommendations, we have guidance, but we don't have express requirements. So the next slide is covering the best practices that have been put out by the California Department of Education. And they have, 25 pages of guidance on their website for how to go through this process. You're going to see a lot of overlap between these various requirements that I'm talking about or considerations that I'm talking about. First and foremost, CDE says engage the community. And that's either form the committee, start the community conversation. So that's, again, overlap with what I've already covered. CDE also has a list of 9 different metrics that they recommend school districts look at when they're making these decisions. And those are things like condition of the facilities in question, operating costs, special programs, environmental factors, demographics, transportation needs, a lot of the types of data that the committee in this case looked at in making recommendations. And then making the decision is kind of where we're at right now. And that's where there is no specific legal process to follow. It's an action. It can be done via resolution. And that is typically what I've seen or almost always have seen districts do. And then you go into your implementation and transition. All of that is after the action is taken, right? As well as disposing of property. We're nowhere near that at this point in time yet. So I do just want to point out that the best practices from CDE are partly about the process to get to where we are today and partly what happens after that point. They also talk about the equity impact analysis, which I'm going to get to on the next slide. So back in 2022, we got Assembly Bill 1912 passed. Largely, I think this was triggered by the Oakland Unified School District closures that got a lot of attention in the press and had some challenges and things like that. And this bill expressly only applies to school districts who are legally defined as being under financial distress. That is not the case here. In fact, that's what we're trying to avoid, right? So the gentleman from the county office talked a little bit about what that means to be under financial distress. There's also a specific definition in the statute that we don't meet. So what does that mean? It means that this law does not apply expressly to this district. What if it did, it would require a very specific equity analysis to be completed and a public process that goes along with that. There is a letter from the Attorney General that does recommend or take the position, or encourages the word we use, but does take the position that this is a good thing for school districts to consider, even if it's not required. But again, it is not something that is legally required in this case. Finally, the one other thing to mention is environmental considerations. Anytime a public agency is undertaking a discretionary action that may have some impact on the environment, they're required to think about the California Environmental Quality Act. Because this is a discretionary action, it's subject to CEQA. We do have a specific exemption in the Public Resources Code that applies to school closures and or relocation of students from one site to another. And so we believe that that applies here. There are some nuances to that, of course. And so that's why you will see language in the resolution that's before you to support findings that the exemption does in fact apply. So just to really quickly recap, the bottom line here is that as controversial as these decisions are, there is not a lot of expressly required process to it. We just have a lot of guidance. And so we need to have community involvement. We need to consider environmental analysis, but beyond that, it's, you know, what the CDE recommends and what the Attorney General recommends. Any questions?
Just so I'm clear, because we saw a list of all of the people who were on the committees and the subcommittee. And for a 7-11 committee, there's only 7 to 11 community members.
Yes.
Who are making those meetings or decisions, or do they give recommendations? What's the difference?
It's similar to this committee being advisory only. A 7-11 committee would also be advisory only. All of these committees are formed for the purpose of making recommendations to the board, not to make decisions for the board. These are all discretionary decisions that are within the board's purview. It's just that a 7-11 committee just is made up of not only the number between 7 and 11 members, but also specific categories of membership. You have to have somebody from the business community, somebody with land use expertise. And again, that's why that doesn't really, maybe it does, maybe there's room for that, but land use expertise might be a little bit less important at this stage versus a sale of property or lease of property. And so that's why those categories are prescribed when it comes to those types of actions. And that's why many districts don't go with the traditional 7-Eleven committee for this stage.
And we did have some questions. I received a lot of emails opposing the co-location, and I also received the other point of view that it's time to actually take care of this problem. So I'm wondering, is there a recommendation on how many committee members need to be in what Pacifica just did? Like, is there
a recommendation on
the
the number of committee members or
like
just
7-Eleven?
I just want to make sure I understand the question. Do you mean a recommendation on how many members should be on the committee or how many members should? No, I think when it comes to, if you're 7-Eleven committee, again, it's very specific statutory committee that has to be formed when you're looking at selling property or leasing property. It's sometimes used when you're looking at school relocations, consolidations, whatever the case may be, but it doesn't have to be, and it's not always a perfect fit. And so anything outside of that, it's really whatever makes the most sense. So you know, in this case, obviously the committee members were selected as leaders within the district. And seems to me that there were quite a few members, whether that's, you know, it's certainly not legally prescribed, I guess is my answer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ring. And so it's worth repeating and reviewing, Mr. Sutter, the 4 scenarios that were presented to you previously by Ms. Navat. Yes. And so again, the 4 scenarios that were presented by Ms. Navat previously were scenario 1, where we have a negative of 4.6 over the 2-year savings. Scenario 2, scenario 3A and 3B, and I'll go through each of those so that you'll have an understanding of what that does. Scenario 1 was a multi-year for 25-26. Staff efficiencies was a TE reduction. Decreasing of staff of 6.6, full-time equivalencies, which brought up a decrease of 778,000. A reduction of special education contracts, decrease of 424,000. Enhancement of educational programs for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders for Ocean Shore to IBL in 25-26, and decreasing of staff by 2 full-time equivalencies, which brought in a 208,000, and the full use of the parcel tax of 1.1 million for 25-26. And for 26-27, reduction of special education contracts of 214,000. Again, the full use of the parcel tax of 1.1. The co-location of Ocean Shore and Sunset Ridge in 26-27. Reduction of teaching full-time equivalencies of 3.0, which brought $312,000. Staffing efficiencies using 1 campus, decreasing the staff of 5 full-time equivalencies, decrease of $585,000. And enhancements of educational programs for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade young children, which of course, an additional site to be at attended IBL, additional staffing decrease of 4 FTEs, was shored up $416,000. That scenario did not meet all 3 of the budget scenario goals. Scenario 2. Oh, okay, I apologize. So Sarah, scenario. Go to the, tell me when to stop. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. And so scenario for first, excuse me, for 26, oh, I can barely see that. For 26-27, first interim, use of the parcel tax, first interim, second interim as well. Eliminate the deficit. Does it eliminate the deficit? That's a resounding no across the board. What happened? Okay, it's a resounding board for the first interim and the second interim. For scenario 1, 2, and 3. In scenario 1, yes, it does eliminate the deficit. However, it gives us a positive. However, it does not provide for and consider future compensation the way in which we would like it to for our teaching staff and our our classified staffing. Scenario 2 uses a parcel tax. It does not eliminate the deficit. It does enhance our student programs. However, it does not consider future compensation for our staffing. It will help us and it will help us meet our reserves. However, the board's reserve edict of 6%, it does not meet that meet that marker there. For scenario 3A, scenario 3A is the one that was presented before you and recommended by the subcommittee. It meets all 3 of the goals. Yes, we do use the parcel tax. It does eliminate the deficit spending. It will enhance student program and provide for the consideration of future compensation for our staffing. It does meet the 3% minimum required by the state, as well as the board's reserve recommendation of 6%. At the ending, we will have a positive certification. And then for scenario 4, which is 3B, we will have to utilize the entire parcel tax. It will not eliminate the entire deficit spending. However, it will enhance our student programming. It does provide some for the future compensation, a very small amount. Will help us meet the 3% minimum reserve and the board's recommendation of 6%. But the marker for us was that it does not eliminate the deficit spending. With that being said.
And so just want to bring to the attention of the board that, can you go back to the slide, please? That while there is the recommendation of the committee, the board still reserves the right to select any of the proposals that are brought. So any of the scenarios that have been brought forth, any combination of the scenarios that are brought forth. And just to be reminded that the committee's recommendation is just that, it is a recommendation.
And so the reading of the resolution 2025-01-22A, resolution approving co-location and co-configuration of schools and determining that such action is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Whereas through the 2023-2024 fiscal year and ongoing, Pacifica School District has undergone a detailed and holistic review of its budget in order to assess and remedy financial challenges, including declining enrollment and, as a result, declining revenue. And whereas in March of 2024, the district formed a superintendent's budget collaborative committee composed of representatives from each school site, including parents and labor partners, which was tasked with reviewing the district's budget and identifying ways to optimize resources, enhance instructional programs, consider future compensation for staffing, and eliminate the budget deficit. And whereas the committee developed a 2-year plan where 1 year would focus on reorganizing special education, improving staff efficiencies, and reducing the budget deficit. And year 2 would involve exploring school reorganization, advocating for the passage of a parcel tax, considering Saturday school to increase attendance, and applying for grants. And whereas a budget subcommittee was also created to develop specific recommendations for the board to consider. And whereas on January 11th, 2025, the board, district leaders, representatives from labor partners, and parents held a study session open to the public where they received and considered public comment as well as the information from district staff regarding budget, financial status, historical enrollment analysis, projected enrollment trends, facilities, capacity, and other policy consideration. And whereas the committee recommended the following, that the district reconfigure Ocean Shore School, which is currently a public K-8 school located at 411 Oceana Boulevard, Pacifica, California, to a K-5 school. That the Ocean Shore as a K-5 be co-located on the same campus as Sunset Ridge Elementary School, a public school elementary located at 340 Inverness Drive, Pacifica, California, where Ocean Shore and Sunset would retain their independence as separate schools with their own CDS identification numbers, but share resources in order to save costs. That Valmar School, currently a public K-8 school located at 377 Reina Del Mar, Pacifica, California, be reconfigured as a K-5 school and remain in its current location. That 6-8 students from Ocean Shore and Valmar be distributed amongst the district's remaining middle schools. Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School, located at 1427 Palmetto Avenue, Pacifica, California, and Cabrillo School, located at 601 Crespi Drive, Pacifica, California, in accordance with the district's existing open enrollment policies and lottery system. That the district restructure the special education program to a 2-track special day program where elementary PK through 5 grades, 5th grade, would be located at Sunset Ridge or Ortega Elementary School, and 6th through 8th grade programming would be located at IBL. That the district modify the special education preschool program to an AM/PM schedule, and whereas because of declining enrollment, financial challenges, and based on the recommendations of the committee, the district now desires to take action to co-locate and reconfigure the above-mentioned schools when the current academic school year ends. And whereas the recommendation, if approved, constitutes a project for purposes of the California Environmental Quality Act. And whereas Public Resources Code Section 21080.18 provides that CEQA does not apply to the closing of any public school in which kindergarten or any grades of or any of grades 1 through 12 is maintained, or the transfer of students from the public school to another school if the only physical changes involved are categorically exempt. And whereas the district has considered the potential effects of the recommendation and has determined that the recommendation will not have any significant effect on the environment, and whereas, as detailed below, no physical changes are anticipated to result from the recommendation. Thus, the statutory exemption contained in Public Resource Code Section 21080.18 applies to the recommendation. And whereas the existing student capacity at Sunset Ridge campus is 733, including space that is currently being used for physical education and other purposes, but could be used for regular classrooms without any facility modifications. There are 350 students enrolled at Sunset Ridge, leaving capacity for 383 additional students. And as of the 24-25 school year, the K-5 student enrollment at Ocean Shore is 271. Whereas, therefore, even if all of the K-5 students enrolled at Ocean Shore remain enrolled in Ocean Shore following its co-location at the Sunset Ridge campus, there is sufficient capacity at the Sunset Ridge campus to absorb all the Ocean Shore students without the need to construct new facilities or expand existing facilities. Whereas existing student capacity at IBL is 827, including space that is currently being used for physical education and other purposes, but could be used for regular classrooms without any facility modifications, with 484 students enrolled. The existing student capacity at Cabrillo is 562, with 524 students enrolled. And as of the 24-25 school year, the 6 through 8 enrollment at Ocean Shore and Valmar respectively is 99 and 128. Therefore, there is sufficient combined facility capacity at IBL and Cabrillo to absorb all of the 6-8 grade students from Ocean Shore and Valmar without the need for any increase in capacity through construction or addition of new classrooms. And whereas the CEQA guidelines exempt from CEQA evaluation projects, which consist of minor additions to existing schools within existing school grounds, where the additions does not increase original student capacity by more than 25% or 10 classrooms, whichever is less. Since the district will not need to add classroom space to any site as a result of the recommendation, it will clearly not increase capacity by the lesser of 25% or 10 classrooms, and the recommendation is therefore categorically exempt. The analysis above shows that the receiving schools have capacity to absorb those students displaced by the recommendation, and the district's enrollment policies and approved collective bargaining agreement discussed below would prevent any one school from enrolling more students than the capacity of that school. And whereas the district's enrollment policies and practices, including board policy and administrative regulation 5116.1 and their associated exhibits entitled Student Enrollment Procedures, do not allow the district to definitely know where students will ultimately enroll in advance of the enrollment process each year, which is ongoing through a lottery system commencing in each preceding fall. Per board policy 5116.1, the district is an open enrollment district, and any student residing within the district boundaries may attend any school in the district. Upon approval of the recommendation, district students will have the ongoing right to enroll at any school they wish, subject to capacity limits as outlined by the student enrollment procedures, the contents of which are incorporated herein by this reference. As a result, no specific environmental study can feasibly be completed to forecast potential impacts related to traffic beyond those described herein. And whereas per board policy and administrative regulation 5116.1 and the associated exhibits, students may only enroll in a school if there is space available at that school. Thus, adoption of the recommendation will not result in enrollment at any school that exceeds that school's capacity or that requires an increase in capacity at any school. And whereas the district's classroom capacities are capped by collective bargaining agreements between the district and the Laguna Salada Educational Association, Article 11, at 24-1 across TK through 3 classes and 32-1 for 4 through 8 grade classes. And the district is therefore subject to those classroom loading numbers. And whereas based on the district's existing enrollment policies and policies and practices described above, students in the district do not necessarily attend the school that is closest to their residence, and students attending each particular school are distributed throughout the entirety of the district. And whereas no facility modifications are necessary in order to reconfigure any of the any of the district's schools in order to implement the recommendation, and any physical change to facilities would be minor and categorically exempt from CEQA as further outlined herein. And whereas class 22 of the CEQA guidelines also exempts from CEQA the adoption, alteration, or termination of educational or training programs which involve no physical alterations in the area affected, or which involves physical changes only in the interior or existing school or training structures, including changes to the grade structure in a school which do not result in changes to student transportation. And whereas the only physical change in the location of the students, thus the recommendation is statutorily exempt from CEQA under Public Resource Code Section 21080.18 and categorically exempt from state CEQA guideline sections 15314. And whereas, as shown in demographic analysis and enrollment projections reports prepared by King Consulting in November of 2024, the findings of which are incorporated herein by reference. Enrollment within the Pacifica School District has been declining for many years. In fact, the current enrollment total is about 18% less than it was in 2021 school year per data available from the California Department of Education. This means that the vehicles miles traveled, VMT, associated with the schools has also declined dramatically and continues to do so. According to research by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, as compiled by the Trip Generation Manual, a typical elementary school generates 2.27 daily trips per student, including faculty and staff. By way of illustration, based on this figure, VMT would have decreased in the district from 7,359 miles in 2021 to 6,029 miles in 2024 to 2025. While implementation of the recommendation could result in some students having to travel farther to school than they travel today, even assuming that all of the students would travel farther, the VMT for the district after the recommendation is implemented will still be far below the VMT in the past. And whereas, based on the location of Sunset Ridge as being more central to residential neighborhoods in the community, it is anticipated that movement of Ocean Shore to the Sunset Ridge campus will reduce or have no impact on VMT pursuant to section 15064.3 of the CEQA guidelines. And whereas the district has considered public comment received by the district related to the recommendation, and all content and comment received by the board at its study sessions on January 11th, 2025, and regular board meeting on January 22nd, 2025. And whereas the recommendation does not involve any of the following, and so is eligible for a categorical exemption as described above under state CEQA guidelines section 15300.2. The cumulative impact of successive projects of the same type in the same place, which over time are significant, an activity where there is reasonable possibility that activity will have a significant effect on the environment due to unusual circumstances, a project which may result in damage to scenic resources, including but not limited to trees, historic buildings, rock outcroppings, or similar resources within a highway officially designated as a state scenic highway, a hazardous waste site, which is included on any list compiled pursuant to section 65962.5 of the government code, a project which may cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of a historical resource, and whereas the recommendation is not otherwise expected to have any significant effect on the environment and is therefore further exempt from CEQA under the common sense exemption found in CEQA guidelines section 1506A, subsection B, subsection 3. And whereas upon the determination that the recommendation exempt from CEQA, the district is entitled to file a notice of exemption with the county clerk and state clearinghouse pursuant to California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Section 15062. With that being said, it is recommended that the board approve a school restructuring plan that moves Ocean Shore Schools K-5 classrooms to Sunset Ridge, moves Ocean Shore Schools 6-8 grades to Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School, and moves Valmar's 6-8 grades to Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School, and adopts resolution 2025-01-22A, approval to co-locate and reconfigure schools, which includes a CEQA exemption.
Any questions? Okay. Not of the public. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the restructuring plan as proposed and adopt resolution 2025? Do I have a motion to approve the restructuring plan as proposed and adopt resolution 2025-01-22-A?
I make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
2 more years.
We're going to have a 15-minute recess before we go on with the other business.
Shame on you.
resume the meeting with item 10B. Martha Ladd.
Good evening. Good evening. Hello? Good,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay. In an effort to properly leverage resources, services, and manage costs in the district's special education program, the district engaged with the San Mateo County SELPA in the development of a SPED advisory plan, and with school associates in the development of a special education department audit. Both the SELPA and the school associates recommended actions to assist in developing quality programs, retaining highly qualified staff, and managing costs. This presentation utilizes the work in those reports to continue to move our special education programs forward. That's not the right report.
It's like the online agenda.
Thank you. That's perfect. So first, I would just like to go through a little bit of our district's data. 14.5% of district's enrollment, 14.5% of our students qualify for special education. County and state is about at 12%. That difference of 2% is about 53 students. So even though 2% seems like a small number, coming in line with what the state and the county is at in terms of identification, and even increasing our pre-referral services so that we're not identifying students for special ed, but giving them maximum access to their general education is a goal for us. The number of students that we serve with the eligibility of autism is 12 to 13% higher than the state or the county. And so this is some work that our department is doing to kind of understand what the impact of that is on our programs and then also on the services that we provide. I also wanted to just highlight the other categories are deaf and hard of hearing, deaf and blindness, multiple disability, orthopedic impairment, and visual impairment. And so we do have students in most of those categories, but the number is so small that you risk identifying the students by breaking those numbers out. And so that's why they've all been included in one category. So what I'm proposing is a reorganization of our SDC programs. Currently, the locations and configurations of our SDC programs have a tendency to fracture our programs, isolate our staff and resources, and disperse and limit our resources. So the idea would be to develop a two-track SDC program, meaning that we would have two of our elementary schools have pre-K SDC classes through 5th grade, and then the 6th through 8th grade SDC programs located at Ingrid B. Lacey. This will focus needed resources at the two elementary sites, IBL, and provide an opportunity for consistency in the programs. We wanted to develop the capacity of all the staff at all the campuses with the SDC program. We wanted to make sure that we wanted to ease appropriate staffing. We've come to over-rely on contracted staffing for special education teachers or ed specialists. And typically ed specialists that we contract with districts for 1 or 2 years. And you really want to hire an ed specialist that is really going to develop that program and that grade span for many years. And typically what I would like to see is 5 to to 7 years, but 7 to 10 years would really be optimal. And the district does have a pay structure that would allow for that to happen for ed specialists. So I would really like to see us strive for that. We would also be able to maximize inclusion opportunities because we would be able to work with our general education teachers and really train them in how IEPs operate, how to work on what their responsibilities for goals are, how to work with paras who come into the classroom, ed specialists, and those types of things. And so and we'd also leverage opportunities for collaboration by eliminating teacher, program, and student isolation. And we would build a thriving program of pre-referral and programmatic services that truly demonstrate special education is a service, not a place. I also think that this would really prioritize connection and belonging among students and families by limiting transitions. Some of our students transition 3 or even 4 times if they find themselves qualifying for an SDC program pre-K through 8th grade. And the other half of the slide estimates the cost savings by having the programs focused on two sites and instead of having them scattered among 5 different sites. The other opportunity that we have is to transition our preschool program into an AM/PM program. The AM/PM model, the focus of the pre-K program will be to meet specific service needs of students and to provide specialized academic instruction that is age and developmentally appropriate. The PK models 2 sessions per day, 2.5 to 3 hours, a program that will match typical pre-K programs and provide opportunities for children in our program to have rich and varied early learning experiences outside of our program. 3-year-olds will be able to prepare for either TK or pre-K 4-year-olds. It will align with, we have actually, California has a state monitoring process, and in the areas of least restrictive environment and separate setting, we have been identified for targeted monitoring. So in transitioning to this plan, it will allow Pacifica to meet targets and these performance indicators. The fiscal impact would be that we would lower the number of teachers that we would need, but we would also lower teacher to student ratios and adult to student ratios under this model. And so I recommend transitioning to this model. Are there any questions? So in summary, the recommendation is to approve the development of a 2-track SDC program, PK through 5th at 2 elementary schools and a 6th through 8th grade SDC programs at Ingrid B. Lacey, and to approve the development of an AM/PM program in our elementary schools.
Okay, no questions? Do I have a motion to approve the development of a 2-track SDC program, PK through 5th grade, at 2 elementary schools and 6th through 8th grade SDC programs at Ingrid B. Lacey, and approve the development of an AM/PM preschool program?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, item C, proposed transitional class sections for 2025-26 school year. That's you again.
That's me. Student services. It was the first presentation that you had up before? No, before I started, proposed TK program enhancements. I can just speak through it. Okay. In the presentation, I'm going to review changes to the TK structure and projections for TK enrollment. What's changed is how we calculate eligibility for TK. It used to be that we calculated TK eligibility by if you turn 4 by, but now they're calculating TK enrollment by if you were born between these dates. So for next year, if you were born between September 2nd, 2022 and September 1st, 2021, you'll be eligible for TK in the coming school year, and then each subsequent year they'll move up a year. We believe, the state believes that that'll make it easier. The next change is the ratio of adults to students moves to 1 to 10. The structure that we're going to be using is 2 to 20. And we've sent out lottery packets and we're on schedule for the lottery. The lottery is scheduled for February 7th. And to date, we've had 99 cards turned in. So based on the projected enrollments for the school year, we're anticipating 158 students, which translates into roughly 8 classes. If you were to look at the King report, the King report kind of gave us almost like 2.5 classes in some of our schools, which would be kind of awkward for staffing. So what we've done is we've tried to make it an even 2 classes at some of our schools. So currently we have at Sunset Ridge and Ortega 2 sections of TK, and at Cabrillo and Valimar, we have 1 section of TK. The TK registration, as I said, is at 99, and it's currently on track to meet the projected number. So the recommendation is to have 2 sections of TK at each of those schools. They do meet the bathroom requirements, which is always a big question, and they do have the space. The next steps for developing our TK programs would be to have a consistent bell schedules for our TK sections across all of our campuses, and then alignment of our TK and kinder instructional minutes across all of our campuses. The ask is it is recommended to add a section of TK to Valimar and Cabrillo schools so that each school has 2 sections of TK. It is also recommended to maintain the 2 sections of TK at Ortega and Sunset Ridge Elementary, bringing the total number of TK sections to 8 sections in the 25-26 school year, an increase of 2 sections from the current school year. Yes.
Okay. Just quick question about this consistent bell schedule. Do you mean it's going to line up with the school schedule, or they're going to all be the same schedule across the district?
I have a thought that I'd like the bell schedules to be similar because we all have a requirement for the same minutes,
Okay.
but I want them to align to have the same number of minutes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Do we have any other questions? No? Okay, do I have a motion to add a section of TK to Valimar and Cabrillo schools and maintain the 2 sections of TK at Ortega and Sunset Ridge Elementary schools?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D, the school accountability report cards or SARCs.
Good evening. Each school principal has submitted their SARC, School Accountability Report Card. It is a state mandated document that is to be completed every year. It is specifically designed so the public can view site information, which includes general information, principal's message, student achievement, parent involvement, professional development, and types of services. This information is useful for both incoming parents and our current parent population. It is recommended the board approve each school accountability report card for Pacifica School District, including Cabrillo, Ingrid B. Lacey, Independent Home Study, Ocean Shore, Ortega, Sunset Ridge, and Valmore. Any questions?
Okay, no questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the school accountability report cards for the Pacifica School District, Cabrillo, Ingrid B. Lacey, Independent Home Study, Ocean Shore, Ortega, Sunset Ridge, and Valmore?
A motion.
Do you have a second?
Thank you.
Okay, item 11, the Board of Trustees and Superintendent recap and future agenda items. Oh,
I just want to thank everybody for their time and energy and efforts to collaborate with the whole entire district. I also wanted to ask Martha if we could somehow set up a meeting with the special ed parents so that they can be familiar with the new changes.
So each of the special education students has an individual education plan. So we will be meeting with each of the involved parents to make sure that we make the placement that's appropriate for each of the students. So that will happen.
And then I just have one more request that in the next coming months that we have a review of our bond projects and money for the community.
I think that's scheduled. Yeah. Okay, anything else?
I'm gonna go over.
What?
I have something.
Okay, you can speak.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the community. Also thank the principals for your leadership. We really appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of you. To the cabinet, I appreciate you. To LSCA, CSCA, it's been tough for all of us and for the community. And now this is the time for us to get to work in a different way and to heal. And I just want to say I appreciate the partnership and the collaboration and also the unity in the best interest of the district and working together. And so thank you. My heart goes out to each and every one of you and also everyone in our district. And good thoughts. We will get through this. And thank you all. And to the board, thank you also for the tough decisions that you all had to make this evening. And so just look forward to moving ahead and working on the healing process together as a family and as a community. Thank you.
So we'll adjourn at 10:05 p.m.